Chapter 3486. Setting up a trap to deal with the blood haul. The second princess's soul was also exchanged here. Another follower muttered. His expression suddenly changed, and he looked at the first prince of the dragons. Your Highness, could this be a trap set up by Qin Feiyang and the others? You're saying that those three people from before were Qin Feiyang and the others in disguise? The first prince of the dragons was surprised. That's possible. They've been to White Crane Island many times, so this is definitely their base. But why haven't we seen them yet? Most importantly, even if they were from Ocean of Cloud City before, we've already changed our appearances before entering the city. Even if we meet them face to face, they wouldn't know who we are. The four followers glanced at the stormy ocean with bewilderment in their eyes. No. The first prince of the dragons suddenly shook his head. What? The four of them looked at him in confusion. If Qin Feiyang really saw us in Ocean of Cloud City, then even if we changed our appearances, we wouldn't be able to escape his eyes. Because we've all activated the Eye of Heaven. The first prince of the dragons said in a low voice. Yes, yes, yes. It's the Eye of Heaven. The four of them nodded repeatedly as they finally realized this. The Eye of Heaven? Chu Yun looked at the first prince of the dragons with a doubtful expression and asked, You've activated this battle soul as well? Of course, she knew about it. Because Elder Hua had already told her about it when he returned. However, she still had to continue acting. Yes. I've also activated the Eye of Heaven. You might not know this, but no matter if it's Qin Feiyang or I, when we see each other, we'll feel a sense of repulsion and disgust. The first prince of the dragons nodded. There's such a thing? If it's really Qin Feiyang's trap, then we're probably no match for him even if we have two sovereign divine weapons. After all, he has the slaughter domain. Your Highness, while Qin Feiyang hasn't shown up yet, quickly send a message to your younger brothers and sisters and ask them to quickly come and help. Chu Yun urged. Yes. Send a message to second sister and the others. If it's really a trap, then let's kill him right here. The crown prince of the dragons sneered and looked at his four followers. The four followers nodded and took out their divine sound transmission stones. The first prince of the dragons scanned the void. Suddenly, he frowned. His divine sense surged out in all directions. Immediately, he caught sight of something in the void in front of him and was shocked. What is it? Chu Yun looked at him in surprise. Prepare for battle. The crown prince of the dragons shouted. Clang. In the next moment, two terrifying divine auras surged out like the eruption of a volcano, instantly enveloping the entire area. Following closely. An ancient castle that was hundreds of feet tall and a blood-red longsword that seemed to be condensed from blood shot out from the void. It carried a destructive aura as it pressed down on the six of them. Puff. Crack. The six of them spurted out blood on the spot. Their faces were deathly pale as they were sent flying like kites with their strings cut. Furthermore, the divine sound transmission stones in the hands of the four followers were also shattered by the sharpness of the blood-colored sword. Shit. This was premeditated. This was a trap. He destroyed our divine sound transmission stones to prevent us from sending a message to the second princess and the others. The four followers roared furiously. Bastard. The crown prince of the dragons roared while a monstrous vicious aura erupted from his body. Clang. An expanse of golden light surged into appearance, and then a 1m long spear appeared. Divine might surged as it sealed off the space ahead. Chu Yun's eyes flashed, and she immediately withdrew her crimson-red sword as well. The sharpness of the sword swept out with overwhelming force and finally blocked the castle and the blood-red longsword. She couldn't help but curse in her heart. She was clearly standing by the crown prince of the dragon's side, yet he attacked without any hesitation. What if he accidentally killed her? Hello. Along with a chuckle, Qin Feiyang walked out from midair and grabbed the blood-red longsword. The castle floated above him while emanating vast divine might. It really is you. The crown prince of the dragon's face was extremely gloomy. Yes. I've been hiding in the city for so long just to wait for you to appear. I believe that you're looking forward to my appearance as well. After all, we're both trying to seize each other's eye of heaven. Qin Feiyang chuckled. He said that to help Chu Yun get rid of all suspicion. That's right. I am indeed looking forward to it. The crown prince of the dragons nodded while gnashing his teeth. Since that's the case, then let's begin. You don't have to worry about anything. I've already driven away all the sea beasts in this area. Killing intent flashed through Qin Feiyang's eyes. He held the blood-red sword in his hand while the castle floated above him. His blood-red hair fluttered in the air, and he looked like a demon king who had descended to the world. Kill him. The crown prince of the dragons roared. The golden spear instantly erupted with dazzling divine light, and the golden dragon pattern on it seemed as if it had come to life. It carried the might to destroy the world as it charged madly towards Qin Feiyang. You want to kill me? You couldn't last time, and you can't do it this time either. Qin Feiyang's eyes were filled with disdain, and he didn't retreat at all. He slashed with the blood-red sword, and a loud clang resounded as a terrifying wave of air surged madly towards the surroundings. The area was instantly reduced to nothingness. Qin Feiyang took a few steps back and looked at Chu Yun. I have a clear conscience towards your demon palace, but you actually joined forces with the dragons to deal with me. How disappointing. Humph. Chu Yun grunted coldly, and the crimson sword recovered. Sword light dyed the sky as it charged towards Qin Feiyang. You'll pay the price for your betrayal. Killing intent surged in Qin Feiyang's eyes. He waved his hand, and the castle obliterated the sky as it collided with the crimson sword. The collision between the three sovereign weapons and the slaughter domain was extremely terrifying. Chu Yun, the crown prince of the dragons, and the other four followers all retreated repeatedly. This was because they couldn't participate in the battle now. Looking at Qin Feiyang, who was holding the blood-red sword and fighting with the golden spear, not only the crown prince of the dragons, but even the two followers also revealed looks of envy. Although they were all supreme experts who had grasped the ultimate profoundness, they couldn't resist at all in the face of a sovereign weapon, let alone fight head-on like Qin Feiyang. One of the followers came back to his senses and hurriedly looked at the crown prince of the dragons, saying, "Your Highness, quickly inform the second princess and the others." The crown prince of the dragons quivered and immediately took out the divine voice stone. That's right. As long as the other princes and princesses rushed over, Qin Feiyang's trap would be his own grave. However, just as he was about to send the message, a monstrous divine might suddenly erupted from the sea below. Following that, he saw a black-clothed young man holding a horsetail whisk and charging into the sky at lightning speed. It's him. Oh no! Protect His Highness. Seeing this, the four followers' faces changed drastically and they hurriedly took the crown prince of the dragons away. Hey! The black-clothed young man was naturally the white-eyed wolf. He grinned and the power of the horsetail whisk was vast and mighty like a torrent of beasts, instantly drowning the sky. The bodies of Chu Yun, the first prince of the dragon clan, and the four followers were all bleeding. The cracks were shocking. As for the first prince of the dragon clan, needless to say, the divine voice transmission stone in his hand was shattered on the spot. At this moment, except for Chu Yun, the crown prince of the dragons and the others fell into despair. All the divine voice stones were destroyed, and there was no way to send a message to the second princess of the dragons and the others. The most important thing was, right now, they were too far away from the golden sword and the red sword, and the two sovereign weapons couldn't come to rescue them in time. In the face of a sovereign weapon like the horsetail whisk, there was no way they could survive. In fact, they had thought of the horsetail whisk at first. However, they thought that the horsetail whisk was on Qin Feiyang and was prepared to catch them off guard. However, they never thought that this person would be so cunning. He actually had someone bring the horsetail whisk and hide in the dark, waiting for an opportunity to act. As expected, this was a meticulously planned conspiracy. They didn't have any chance to resist at all. What did I tell you just now? I told you not to chase, but you didn't believe me. Now, you're going to lose your life here. The white-eyed wolf laughed mockingly. The pressure of the horsetail whisk firmly imprisoned the six of them, and they couldn't even self-destruct their bodies. Moreover, the pressure was like a mountain that was madly crushing their bodies. Chu Yun's expression was also extremely painful. She transmitted her voice, "White-eyed wolf, just kill me. Before I left my soul in the demon palace. Is that so? Then I'll be at ease and attack." The white-eyed wolf secretly chuckled. The horsetail whisk's pressure once again soared to another level. Accompanied by screams, the bodies of the six people shattered one after another, leaving behind only their souls. Even Chu Yun was the same. "Stinking woman, how dare you betray us? I'll kill you first." The white-eyed wolf looked at Chu Yun with a fierce glint in his eyes. He took a step forward and slapped towards Chu Yun's soul. Chu Yun's beautiful face turned pale, and her soul was immediately destroyed. Seeing Chu Yun fall, the first prince of the dragons and the others became even more terrified. However, after killing Chu Yun, the white-eyed wolf didn't make any more moves. He scanned the void and asked the horsetail whisk, "Did you find anything like a spatial divine object?" "Yes. They all have spatial divine objects, but they have already shattered along with their bodies," the horsetail whisk replied. "Then did you find anyone else?" the white-eyed wolf asked again. "No," the horsetail whisk said. "Then it seems that the fire dragon is indeed not with them." "How lucky!" the white-eyed wolf snorted coldly. In fact, the one he wanted to kill the most was the fire dragon. Thinking back to all these years, the fire dragon had repeatedly come to find trouble with them and made them extremely embarrassed every time. Just thinking about it made him angry. However, he had to admit that the fire dragon was really lucky to be able to escape every time. The white-eyed wolf's eyes flashed with killing intent. He looked at the horsetail whisk and said, "Severely injure their souls and then go help little Qin Zi." "Okay," the horsetail whisk replied. More than half of the souls of the first prince of the dragons and the others were immediately destroyed by the power of the horsetail whisk. Then, they shattered the sky and rushed towards the golden spear like lightning. "Don't be nervous. I won't kill you yet." The white-eyed wolf glanced at the broken souls of the five people and grinned. He activated the power of laws and formed a palm-sized barrier to imprison the souls of the five people. Then, he looked at the battlefield where Qin Feiyang was and shouted, "You asked me to kill you with one blow, and I did it. Now it's time to see your performance. Leave that sovereign divine weapon behind." Chapter 3487. Hearing the white-eyed wolf's roar, Qin Feiyang was finally relieved. He was afraid that an accident would happen and all his efforts would be in vain. Fortunately, the white-eyed wolf was quite reliable at the critical moment. Boom! The horsetail whisk rushed over aggressively. "Go!" Seeing this, the golden spear roared and suddenly blasted toward the blood-red long sword. Qin Feiyang was immediately sent flying. Immediately. Under Qin Feiyang's astonished gaze, the golden spear flew away without looking back. What's going on? Not only Qin Feiyang, but also the castle, the horsetail whisk, and the red long sword were a little confused. Logically speaking, shouldn't the golden spear try its best to find an opportunity to take away the divine souls of the crown prince and the other dragons? But now, it actually left so decisively. Qin Feiyang, keep up the good work. The red long sword came back to its senses and secretly encouraged Qin Feiyang. Then, it also flew away like lightning. Are we still chasing it? Qin Feiyang looked at the castle and the horsetail whisk. The castle said lightly, if you can guarantee that you can catch it, then we will accompany you. Guarantee? Qin Feiyang's face stiffened. Who could guarantee this? After all, the other party was a sovereign divine weapon. With his current speed, he was not even qualified to eat dust behind. Forget it. Capturing the first prince of the dragon race and his men is not a waste of effort. Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed. Then, he stepped on the space-time step and rushed toward the white-eyed wolf. The castle and the horsetail whisk followed closely behind. What's going on? Seeing Qin Feiyang fly over so quickly, the white-eyed wolf looked a little surprised. They ran away. They are quite decisive. It was too late to stop them. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Ran away? The white-eyed wolf was slightly taken aback. He pointed at the remnant souls imprisoned in the enchantment and frowned, aren't we going to save them? Looks like you don't want to save him. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. Ugh! The white-eyed wolf looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. Then he said angrily, you're so useless. The horsetail whisk went to help, but you still let it escape? What do you mean? That's a sovereign weapon, not a heaven-defying one, okay? Why don't you give it a try? Qin Feiyang's face darkened. Who in the sky cloud realm could guarantee that they could stop a sovereign divine weapon? Besides, he didn't expect the golden spear to flee so decisively. Hearing this, the white-eyed wolf's expression stiffened. He smiled and said, then forget it. I don't have that ability. Of course you don't have that ability. Suddenly, the voice of the first prince of the dragon sounded. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf were taken aback. They turned their heads to look at the enchantment. The remnant soul of the first prince of the dragons gradually condensed into the shape of a divine dragon. Although it was a little blurry, it was obvious that there was a trace of anger and resentment in his eyes. And strangely, there seemed to be a hint of ridicule. We don't, but you do? The white-eyed wolf looked at him disdainfully. The first prince of the dragons glanced at Qin Feiyang, then looked at the white-eyed wolf and said, who are you? Take a guess. The white-eyed wolf laughed. Not interested. The first prince of the dragons shook his head. The white-eyed wolf shook his body and immediately returned to his original form. So it's you. The first prince of the dragons suddenly realized. Yes. It's you, brother wolf. Do you have anything to say now? Feel free to say whatever you want. The white-eyed wolf smiled playfully. The first prince of the dragons took a deep breath and ignored the white-eyed wolf. His gaze fell on Qin Feiyang and said, you win again this time. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Have you figured out how to fuse with my eye of heaven? The first prince of the dragons asked. Yes. Qin Feiyang didn't deny it. It's too early for you to be happy. Although I've fallen into your hands, it doesn't mean that you've won. It's not that easy to fuse with my eye of heaven. The first prince of the dragon's mocking tone became more and more obvious. Then he said, how about this, it's meaningless to always use a dominator weapon, and it won't show off our strength. Why don't we find a time and place to have a fair duel without relying on any dominator weapons? What? A duel to the death? Qin Feiyang was stunned. The white-eyed wolf, the castle, and the horsetail whisk were also surprised. This guy must have been scared out of his wits. Otherwise, why would he say such nonsense? He was only a remnant soul now. How could he be qualified to challenge Qin Feiyang to a duel? You must be wondering if I'm crazy right now. I don't know my own situation. A prisoner who's about to be killed dares to challenge you to a duel? Am I right? The first prince of the dragons asked. Isn't that right? If we want to kill you now, we can just move our fingers. What right do you have to challenge little Qin Zi to a duel? The white-eyed wolf sneered. At first, I thought that you were quite powerful. After all, I was tricked by you this time and didn't have a chance to turn things around. But now, it seems that you're just so-so. The first prince of the dragons laughed and looked at Qin Feiyang. He asked, what do you think? Do you want to challenge me? We won't use the divine weapon or the killing domain. We'll rely on our own means. Qin Feiyang frowned. What did this person mean? How could he be so calm when he was about to die? Wait. All of a sudden, Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled and he looked at the first prince of the dragons in surprise. What's wrong? The white-eyed wolf noticed the change in Qin Feiyang's expression and was shocked. Did he really miss something? It seems that you found out. The first prince of the dragons laughed. Qin Feiyang clenched his hands and a monstrous anger surged in his heart. He said in a deep voice, you left your divine soul in the dragon nest? What? The white-eyed wolf's body trembled. His divine soul was left in the dragon nest? Then wouldn't he have worked for nothing? That's right. There's a saying that humans learn from their mistakes. Last time in the Een Demon Land, I almost died at your hands and learned about your methods and brains. Naturally, I didn't dare to be careless again. So this time, I left my divine soul in the dragon nest in advance. The first prince of the dragons chuckled, then looked at the white-eyed wolf and said jokingly, do you still think I'm a prisoner now? Now do you know why the golden dragons left so decisively? Damn it! The white-eyed wolf's hair stood on end. He had worked so hard for half a day, but it really was for nothing. You didn't work for nothing, because I really did fall into your trap, and I really did feel an even greater sense of humiliation and anger. This humiliation and anger is making me lose my mind. As the first prince of the dragons, I've been the son of everyone's eyes since I was young. But in the end, I lost to you, Qin Feiyang, one after another. Especially since you also opened the eye of heaven like me. This makes me even angrier. Both of us have opened the eye of heaven, so why did I fall into your trap again and again? Is it because you have the power of the violet gold dragon bloodline? I refuse to accept this. The bloodline power of the five-clawed divine dragon is the noblest, purest, and most orthodox bloodline power of the dragons. The eye of heaven, bloodline power, the two of us are destined to be mortal enemies. You want to kill me, and I want to kill you. Then let us have a real contest. If I lose, I'll give you the eye of heaven, including my life, with both hands. Do you dare? The first prince of the dragons shouted, his eyes blazing with fighting spirit. Qin Feiyang stared at the first prince of the dragons, his eyes extremely gloomy. He truly couldn't accept the fact that he had worked for nothing. In order to deal with the first prince of the dragons, he had spent the last 2 days thinking, but he had never imagined that he would end up with nothing. Yes. The first prince of the dragons was right. He had won this contest, but he wasn't happy at all. Instead, he felt a sense of defeat in his heart. Crack. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang clenched his fists and said coldly, what's there to be afraid of? The time and place, you choose. If I lose, I will also give you the eye of heaven and my life. Great. I will inform you of the time and place when the time comes. You just have to be prepared. Because when the time comes, I will return the humiliation and anger you brought to me 1,000 times over. The first prince of the dragons laughed, and his soul automatically dissipated in the enchantment. At the same time, the 4 followers were the same. It was obvious that they had left their souls in the dragon's nest. I'm going crazy. The white-eyed wolf looked at the empty enchantment and couldn't help but roar. Qin Feiyang's expression was also ugly. He had calculated everything, but he still missed something. Although the plan was very successful, he still felt uncomfortable. "It's fine. Keep up the good work." The castle comforted him and went straight to the Black Tortoise world. Sigh. The horsetail whisk sighed and comforted with a smile, "Don't be discouraged. Although you didn't get the Eye of Heaven, you still showed your strength. Otherwise, the first prince of the dragons wouldn't have issued you a challenge. Can you not say nice things?" Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. "No. I'm telling the truth. Why did he issue you a challenge? That's because he saw how powerful you are and couldn't find a way to deal with you, so he had to grit his teeth and have a fair duel with you. To be honest, I feel sorry for him. To think that the first prince of the dragon race would be forced into such a state by a human." The horsetail whisk smiled. Okay, go rest." Qin Feiyang waved his hand. "Okay." The horsetail whisk responded and disappeared into Qin Feiyang's body. Not good at all." The white-eyed wolf looked around and said angrily to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang glanced at the ingrate, and then strands of cold lights suddenly shot out from his eyes. He raised his head to look at the horizon and sneered. "If you're displeased, then go find someone to vent it on." "Find who?" The white-eyed wolf paused and then looked at Qin Feiyang and asked. "Find the other princes and princesses while there's still time in the slaughter zone. Moreover, we can't waste so much blood." Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with murderous intent. "Yes, find them." The white-eyed wolf nodded and waved his paw. A space-time passage appeared in the void and then the man and wolf walked in with murderous intent. Chapter 3488. Eastern Continent. At the entrance of the Yin Demon Land. There were more people lingering at the entrance than before. "Brother, I want to ask you something." "What is it?" "Are you in the Yin Demon Land?" "For the past 1,000 years, I've been training in the Yin Demon Land." "I admire you. Since you've been training here for 1,000 years, you must know about Qin Feiyang's situation." "Qin Feiyang?" "Yes, there's a rumor that Qin Feiyang and the others appeared in the Yin Demon Land." "Is this true?" "Oh, this. It's true. I saw them enter the Yin Demon Land with my own eyes. He really did come to the Yin Devil Land." "What happened after he entered the Yin Devil Land?" "It's a long story. I heard that a mysterious force appeared in the central region. The people and beasts of this force have a blood mark between their eyebrows. Their strength is stronger than ordinary people. It's said that Qin Feiyang, Madman Mo, Golden-Winged Wolf King, Pei Tianhong, and Wang Chongyuan fought with this mysterious force in the depths of the central region. As for what happened in the end, no one knows. I didn't expect this rumor to be true. Anyone who has been to the Yin Demon Land knows about this. It's not a secret." Boom! Suddenly, a terrifying aura descended above the entrance. The people lingering at the entrance looked up. Their eyes trembled. They saw a man and a wolf standing in the air. Their bodies were filled with killing intent. Especially the man. He was holding a blood-red sword. His entire body seemed to be bathed in blood. Isn't that Qin Feiyang and Golden-Winged Wolf King? Is that the legendary slaughter domain? So terrifying. It's on par with the sovereign weapon. However, why did he activate the slaughter domain and come to the land of Yin Devils? Everyone was shocked. This was the first time for many people to see the slaughter domain, and they were filled with shock. As soon as Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf appeared, they lowered their heads and scanned the mountains and rivers below. At the same time, they activated their divine senses and sent them in all directions. Brother Qin, may I ask, who are you looking for? If it is, tell us. Maybe we've seen it before, because us brothers have always been in the Yin Devil land. A middle-aged man in black raised his head and asked Qin Feiyang. Behind him stood 5 middle-aged men. This was a small team. Teams like this not only existed in the Yin Devil lands, but also in the various Forbidden lands. After all, with your strength alone, it was not easy to survive in the various great forbidden areas. Thus, many people would choose to form teams with others so that they could look after each other. Thank you for your kindness, but I don't want to implicate innocent people. Qin Feiyang smiled and withdrew his divine sense. He looked at the white-eyed wolf and said, "To the land of buried gods." Because no one from the dragon clan could be found here. The white-eyed wolf nodded and also withdrew his divine sense. He activated the law of space and a transmission channel appeared. Immediately, 1 man and 1 wolf entered the transmission channel without looking back. What's the situation? They actually want to go to the land of buried gods? Why don't we go and take a look? Let's go. They must be looking for someone important. Everyone was discussing. The land of buried gods was located between the eastern and northern continents. The degree of danger was no less than the Yin Devil lands. Every day, countless people or beasts died in the land of buried gods. At the entrance, it was still a series of steep mountains. At the entrance, there were many people recuperating. Some of them even had serious injuries. Boom! Suddenly, the 2 powerful auras descended. The people below were shocked and looked up. It's them. At a glance, they recognized Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. Looking at the slaughter domain and the blood-red sword, whether it was a human or a beast, their eyes were filled with awe. Not a single word. 1 man and 1 wolf released their divine sense at the same time, rolling in all directions. In an instant, it covered tens of millions of miles, but they still couldn't find any trace of the prince and princess of the dragons. What's the situation? Aren't they blocking the entrances of these forbidden areas? Could it be that they gave up the blockade after we attacked the prince of the blood dragon clan in the land of heavy domain? The white-eyed wolf frowned. Qin Feiyang was silent. Suddenly, his face changed, and he said in a deep voice, "It seems that we won't continue." Why? The white-eyed wolf looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyang said, "The first prince of the dragons is not dead, so the other princes and princesses should have received the news." You mean, they have all withdrawn now? The white-eyed wolf asked. I don't think they just withdrew. Now, they should all stay together, and they might even be looking for us. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed slightly, and he lowered his head and whispered a few words in the white-eyed wolf's ear. Okay. The white-eyed wolf nodded and opened the space-time transmission channel. I don't believe that we can't even find one entrance to the land of heavy domain in the southern continent. Qin Feiyang snorted coldly, and stepped into the transmission channel with the white-eyed wolf without looking back. They left just like that? They still want to go to the entrance of the land of heavy domain in the southern continent? What's the situation? Everyone looked at each other. Boom! Suddenly, a powerful aura descended, led by a few young men and women, and their eyes emitted a piercing cold light. Behind them, there were 2 followers, and their aura was unfathomable. That's right. They were the other princes and princesses of the dragons. At first, when they received the news from the first prince, they immediately gathered and went to White Crane Island, ready to catch Qin Feiyang off guard. However, when they rushed to White Crane Island, it was already empty. Then they thought that Qin Feiyang might come to hunt them down. After all, the prince of the Blood Dragon clan was attacked by Qin Feiyang last time, so they used the Demon Palace's network to investigate Qin Feiyang's whereabouts. Soon, They found out that Qin Feiyang had appeared at the entrance of the Yin Demon Land. By the time they arrived, Qin Feiyang had already left. When they inquired, they found out that Qin Feiyang had come to this place again. Thereupon, without stopping to rest, they hurried over. But in the end, they didn't see Qin Feiyang here. Where is Qin Feiyang? A woman in green looked at the people below and asked murderously. What's going on? Everyone was stunned. Qin Feiyang and the Golden-Winged Wolf King were looking for them, and at the same time, there was a group of people looking for them? Speak! The woman in green shouted, and a terrifying pressure surged toward the people below. They went to the entrance of the heavy region of the southern continent. Someone hurriedly shouted. They went to the southern continent again? It seems that it's as we expected. They are preparing to hunt us down. Fortunately, we were notified in time. Otherwise, we would have been defeated by them one by one. This person is really difficult to deal with. However, since we already know where they went, it's time for us to hunt them down. What's so great about the slaughter region? What's so great about having two sovereign divine weapons? The princes and princesses snorted coldly and activated the space-time teleportation divine artifact and walked in. Originally, they were all fighting for themselves. Because in their initial opinion, with their strength and means, it was more than enough to deal with Qin Feiyang. But now, after several confrontations, they finally realized that they had greatly underestimated this person's ability. Especially this time. The first prince came with 4 followers full of confidence, but in the end, he died before he could achieve anything. When they received the news, they were also very shocked. How could there be such a terrifying person? Therefore, they had no choice but to join forces. However, it was worth mentioning that the second princess, the third prince, and the prince of the blood dragons were nowhere to be seen. The southern continent. A desolate mountain stood at the border of the continent. At the end of the mountain, there was an endless black desert, which was the heavy region. After passing through here, one would reach the exit of the heavy region of the western continent. However, at the entrance of the heavy region of the southern continent, there was not a single creature at this time. It was so quiet that it was frightening. Clang! Suddenly, accompanied by a loud noise, a door flashing with divine light opened. The woman in green and the others rushed out aggressively, but when they saw the empty entrance, their expressions suddenly froze. What's going on? Didn't they say that they came to the southern continent? Where is he now? Something's not right. Not only did we not see Qin Feiyang and the Golden-Winged Wolf King, but we also didn't see any other humans or beasts. Previously, I was responsible for blocking the entrance here. Before I left, there were still many humans cultivating here. A young muscular man with his upper body exposed glanced at the entrance in surprise. Hearing the muscular man's words, the woman in green and the others' pupils shrank slightly. Something must have happened since it was so abnormal. She immediately prepared to release her divine sense. Clang! But at this moment, accompanied by a deafening sword cry, a blood-red sword chi flooded the sky like a raging wave and instantly shrouded a group of people. Ah! Screams suddenly sounded. Whether it was the princes, princesses, or the group of followers, their bodies were shattered by the terrifying sword chi on the spot. Blood dyed the sky red. Boom! Clang! However, just as the group of people's divine souls were about to be annihilated, the aura of the sovereign divine weapons emerged and instantly disintegrated the blood-red sword chi. There they are. One of the followers pointed at the mountain peak not far away and roared angrily. The others followed his finger and immediately saw a space-time portal on the mountain peak. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf were standing in front of the portal. If it weren't for the sovereign divine weapons, you would have been dead by now. You want to hunt us down with such little ability? Go back, wash up, and sleep early. The white-eyed wolf sneered and followed Qin Feiyang into the spacetime portal without looking back. Bastard! The group of princesses and princes were furious. The group of followers looked at the rapidly dissipating spacetime portal and fell silent. Chapter 3489. The princes and princesses were angry and unwilling, but the group of followers were more afraid and in awe. They were once again schemed against by Qin Feiyang and were almost wiped out. No. In fact, it was no different from being wiped out. Because their physical bodies were all destroyed. As the white-eyed wolf said, if it weren't for their sovereign divine weapons, they would have been destroyed. The most terrifying thing was the brains and schemes of Qin Feiyang and the others. Because it was obvious. Qin Feiyang and the others had already thought of it. They had joined forces. And they also guessed that they were looking for them. Therefore, Qin Feiyang and the others beat them at their own game and deliberately exposed their whereabouts, luring them here and giving them a fatal blow. It could be said that every step was within the calculations of Qin Feiyang and the others. They had been led by the nose. Your Highness, let's go back to the dragon's nest. One of the followers looked at the divine soul of the woman in green and sighed. Back to the dragon's nest? The woman in green raised her eyebrows. Yes. Back to the dragon's nest. The follower nodded. The other followers were also silent. They also agreed to go back to the dragon's nest. Because in these few battles, the dragons had never been able to gain the upper hand. They were all suppressed by Qin Feiyang and the others. The first prince, the second princess, the third prince, the fourth prince, and the princes and princesses standing in front of them had successively fallen in the hands of Qin Feiyang and the others. Now, only the little princess was left safe and sound. In short, they had already lost confidence in their own princesses and princes. It was impossible for them to fight against Qin Feiyang and the others. The gap was too big. I'm not going back. It's embarrassing to go back now. I can't take this lying down. The princesses and princes snorted coldly. Seeing this, the group of followers sighed. Couldn't they see the reality clearly? Qin Feiyang and the others, whether in terms of brains or means, were better than them. Did they have to wait until they died in the hands of the other party before they were willing to give up? The southern continent. Outside the entrance of the Een Devil Land, in the air above a mountain range. Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf stood facing the wind. Awesome! The white-eyed wolf laughed loudly. Although he did not manage to kill a group of people, he managed to destroy a group of people's physical bodies. It could be considered as venting his anger. Qin Feiyang swept his gaze over the Een Devil Land and felt a lot more comfortable in his heart. He smiled faintly and said, apart from the dragon race's little princess, the other princes and princesses have all suffered disastrous losses. Next, they should choose to return to the dragon nest. Return to the dragon nest? The white-eyed wolf was slightly stunned. He shook his head and said, not necessarily. What do you mean? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. They are all proud and arrogant people. How can they swallow this insult? I can guarantee that they will continue to stay outside and think of ways to deal with us. The white-eyed wolf smiled disdainfully. When Qin Feiyang heard this, he felt that it made sense. However, this little princess of the dragons, shouldn't we teach her a lesson? I don't believe that she doesn't know that the first prince left his soul in the dragon nest. The white-eyed wolf snorted coldly. Not necessarily. When you met her, you also heard what she said. She and the first prince of the dragons are not on good terms. There are many things about the first prince of the dragons that she doesn't know. Simply put, they are both guarding against each other. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Although they each had their own motives, he had to admit that they needed the little princess of the dragons as an ally. Therefore, he did not agree to attack the little princess of the dragons. Then, why don't we stay here for a while? If the dragons really want to return to the dragon nest, this is the only way. We can also give them a fatal blow. The white-eyed wolf thought for a moment and said, "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded. He suppressed the aura of the blood-red sword and activated the concealment technique. The man and wolf immediately hid in the void. Time passed little by little. The time of the slaughter domain was finally over. But until now, the group of dragons had not arrived. Obviously, these people did not choose to return to the dragon nest. When the slaughter domain ended, Qin Feiyang waved his hand. The blood-red sword dissipated, and the murderous aura also subsided. Then what are we going to do now? The white-eyed wolf turned his head and looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Now, Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment, his eyes flashing, and said, "It's time to go to the other 3 forbidden areas to take a look. By the way, that white-bearded old man, where did you throw him?" "I threw him in the sky cloud sea. As for whether he's dead or alive now, I don't know." The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. After thinking for a while, he frowned. "I don't know why, but I always feel that this white-bearded old man doesn't seem to be as simple as he seems on the surface." "You're thinking too much. When he was being chased by the first prince of dragons and the others, you didn't see his frightened look, and it didn't seem to be an act at all." The white-eyed wolf disdained. "Maybe it's my imagination," Qin Feiyang whispered. Buzz. Suddenly, the sound transmission god stone rang. Qin Feiyang took out the sound transmission god stone and took a look, then brought the white-eyed wolf into the black tortoise realm. Then, he activated the sound transmission god stone, and Elder Hua's shadow quickly appeared. Elder Hua chuckled, "Your actions are a bit fast. Not long after you killed the first prince of dragons, you destroyed the bodies of the other princes and princesses. The first prince is not dead." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "This old man already knows. I also didn't expect that he would actually leave his divine soul in the dragon nest." Elder Hua sighed. "How did you know?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. "When you were fighting on White Crane Island, this old man hid in the dark and watched the battle. Don't be discouraged. Although it didn't go as planned this time, the plan was still very successful." Elder Hua smiled slightly, his eyes filled with encouragement. "It's not that I'm discouraged, it's just that my heart is filled with anxiety." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "You young people are not easily satisfied. If it was this old man who could achieve this step, would definitely feel a little proud in my heart." Elder Hua shook his head, then said, "I'm sending you a message now because I have a piece of news to tell you. Those princesses and princes are currently recuperating in the He clan." "He clan?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. Why did it sound a little familiar? The white-eyed wolf looked at Elder Hua and asked, "Is it the number 1 family in the southern continent, the He clan?" "Yes." Elder Hua nodded. The white-eyed wolf nodded, then turned to look at Qin Feiyang and said, "Do you still remember when we came out of the Yin Demon Land, we met someone called Yun Zifeng?" "Yun Zifeng," Qin Feiyang muttered, then patted his head and nodded, "I remember now. At that time, I thought that this person was pretty good." Yun Zifeng was from the Yun clan, which was the number 2 family in the southern continent. The old ancestor of the Yun clan was the deputy hall master of the deities Templar. The He clan was the number 1 family in the southern continent, and the old ancestor of the deities Templar was also the hall master of the deities Templar. According to Pei Tianhong, there was a deep grudge between the 2 families. Pei Tianhong even suggested that he should rope in the Yun clan. Qin Feiyang looked at Elder Hua and asked, "Why did they go to the He clan to recuperate?" "I think, firstly, they just happened to be in the southern continent. Secondly, they might have noticed the He clan's strength and wanted to rope them in to deal with you. After all, once you have the He clan's support, it's equivalent to having the deity's Templar support. Elder Hua said. Qin Feiyang frowned, but the He clan doesn't have the final say in the deity's Templar. There's still the Yun clan. Elder Hua was slightly stunned, then he smiled. It seems that you already know the deity's Templar situation. Old Pei told me before. Qin Feiyang smiled. I see. Elder Hua suddenly smiled. He had forgotten that Qin Feiyang still had Pei Tianhong by his side. Pei Tianhong basically knew what he knew, so he immediately said, the deity's Templar's power shouldn't be underestimated. You mean, you want me to rope in the He clan? Qin Feiyang asked. In front of the powerful dragons, how could the He clan choose to stand with you? Not everyone in the Sky Cloud domain supports you like the Demonic Hall and the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Elder Hua rolled his eyes. Qin Feiyang smiled embarrassedly and asked, then, what do you mean? Start with the Yun clan. The He clan will definitely choose to follow the dragons. And the Yun clan, which is opposing the He clan, is an opportunity for you. However, this matter is still up to you to decide. Elder Hua said. Qin Feiyang thought for a while and asked, then, who is in charge of the deity's Templar's sovereign divine weapon? Everyone knew that the most important thing for a force was the sovereign divine weapon. Having the sovereign divine weapon was equivalent to having great power. The dragons and his group would go to the He clan. On one hand, they valued the deity's Templar's power. On the other hand, it was because of the sovereign divine weapon. Therefore, if they really wanted to rope in, they would definitely rope in the side with the sovereign divine weapon. The deity's Templar is a little special. Therefore, the sovereign divine weapon is placed in the sacred ground of the deity's Templar. And this place, it is said that the two old ancestors of the He clan and the Yun clan have to take out the key at the same time to open it and take out the sovereign divine weapon. Elder Hua explained. Qin Feiyang asked, that means, they don't have direct control over it? No. In layman's terms, this sovereign divine weapon doesn't belong to anyone. It is the shared property of the two families. Elder Hua nodded. Then, this is interesting. If the He clan really cooperates with the dragons, then the He clan will definitely use the dragon's hands to seize the other key from the Yun clan and obtain the right to control the sovereign divine weapon. At that time, the Yun clan will no longer have the qualifications to fight with the He clan. Qin Feiyang laughed. That's right. In these years, the He clan has already shown signs of suppressing the Yun clan. Once the He clan obtains the sovereign divine weapon, the Yun clan will definitely be the first target to be eliminated. I believe that the Yun clan is also very clear about this. But now, the Yun clan still doesn't know that the dragons have entered the He clan. At that time, they won't even have the slightest bit of defense. So at this time, if you think that the Yun clan's power is useful to you, you can try to find them. Elder Hua said. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and smiled, then, let me think about it. Alright, this old man won't interfere in your matters. You can decide for yourself. Elder Hua smiled faintly. Because Qin Feiyang's performance was already quite outstanding, he couldn't do anything about it. It might even be more of a hindrance. Chapter 3490. Qin Feiyang nodded and asked with concern, how's Chu Yun now? She's doing well. She's reconstructing her divine soul and body. Elder Hua smiled. Please apologize to her for me. Qin Feiyang sighed. We're all family. There's nothing to be sorry about. Elder Hua waved his hand. Qin Feiyang felt extremely moved. Even though he was facing a colossus like the Dragon Race, the Demon Royal Halls and the Loose Cultivator Alliance still supported him. There was a saying that went, true love is only revealed in adversity. He couldn't forget this kind of friendship. Oh, right. Did you help the Alliance leader and the others unlock the door of potential? Elder Hua suddenly asked. Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned. He turned to the white-eyed wolf and asked, did you give them any pills? Well, I think so, but I don't think so. The white-eyed wolf was also unsure. There were too many things happening every day and he could not remember them all. I can't remember either. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. He pondered for a moment and said, how about this? Regardless of whether they've opened it or not, we'll give them some pills. Even if they don't need them, we can leave them for their descendants. If that's the case, shouldn't you give some to the demonic palace too? Elder Hua chuckled. Of course. Qin Feiyang laughed. Brat, I didn't misjudge you. Elder Hua smiled and said, then you guys can go and do your work. Don't forget to cultivate when you're free. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded and patted his head. He looked at Elder Hua and said, by the way, help me investigate the fire dragon's whereabouts. Don't worry, I'll keep an eye out for you. I'll send you a message as soon as I have any news. Elder Hua said. Thank you. Qin Feiyang smiled gratefully and turned off the divine sound transmission stone. Then, he entered the ancient castle and took out 100 pills that could unlock the door of potential. The pills that Dan Wangkai refined were all left in the pill refining room, so if he wanted them, he could just go and get them. Send it to the Devil Hall and the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Be careful when you go to the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Don't let the little princess of the dragons discover you. Qin Feiyang gave the pills to the white-eyed wolf and instructed. It's a piece of cake. The white-eyed wolf bared his fangs. After leaving the Black Tortoise world, he activated the space-time law and disappeared without a trace. It would be great if I could master the laws of space-time as well. Frankly speaking. Seeing the white-eyed wolf running around with his space-time laws activated, he felt a little envious. Immediately after, he landed on the peak of a nearby mountain and lowered his head to ponder. Yun family, He clan, it seemed that the trip to the other 3 forbidden areas would have to be delayed a little longer. Because if he went to the 3 forbidden areas first and waited for the He clan to gain control of the sovereign divine weapon and then eliminate the Yun family in one fell swoop, then it would be too late to do anything. Wait. Is this Yun Zifeng related to Yun Xiang? Qin Feiyang muttered. Their surnames were the same, and their names only differed by one word. It was really hard to believe that they were not related. After pondering for a while, Qin Feiyang took out the sound transmission god stone and sent a message to Yueqing. After a while, Yueqing's shadow finally appeared. Qin Dage. In front of Qin Feiyang, Yueqing was very obedient and gentle. Are you still in the western continent? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. Yueqing nodded. Qin Feiyang asked, did the dragons come to find you? Yes. Miao Miao and I were brought to them for questioning. However, we have already said that our relationship with you is not as good as everyone thinks. We just want your help to establish Tianyue Tower in the eastern and western continents quickly. In addition, the Demon Hall and the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance helped us to verify, so the dragons had no doubts. Yueqing smiled. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, in the eyes of the dragons, the Demon Hall, the Itinerant Cultivator Alliance, and your Tianyue Tower are all ungrateful snobs. It doesn't matter what the dragons think, as long as we have a clear conscience in our hearts. Yueqing said. Good attitude. Qin Feiyang nodded approvingly and asked, did Yun Xiang contact you during this period? No. After he left, he did not contact us. We took the initiative to contact him, but we never got in touch. Yueqing sighed, her face was full of worry. Qin Feiyang furrowed his brows and asked, then did he reveal his identity to you? Identity? Yuqing was slightly taken aback and asked suspiciously, what identity does he have? When Qin Feiyang heard this, he shook his head and said, I don't know either. I just met someone recently. This person's name is almost the same as Yun Xiang's, so I wanted to ask if he is related to Yun Xiang. The same name as Big Brother Yun? Yuqing was surprised. This person is called Yun Zifeng, a member of the Southern Continent's Yun family. Qin Feiyang nodded. Yun Zifeng? Yuqing pondered for a while and shook her head. I have never heard Big Brother Yun mention this name before. It should be a coincidence. After all, there are so many people in the sky cloud realm, and there are even people with the same name, not to mention a difference of one character. That's true. Qin Feiyang thought for a while and nodded with a smile. Okay, take care of yourself. Okay. You take care too. Yuqing smiled sweetly. Qin Feiyang turned off the sound transmission god stone, shook his head, and put it away. Perhaps he was really thinking too much. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang looked at the void in front of him and felt two auras rushing over. Could it be people from the dragons? Immediately, he activated the concealment art again and instantly hid in the void. Soon, two figures entered his line of sight. It was a man and a woman, but they were not the princess and prince of the dragons. Both of them looked young, about 20 years old, and their cultivation was not bad, at the Dominator realm. Qin Feiyang didn't care at first, as long as they were not the princess and prince of the dragons, it was fine, but when he retracted his gaze, he suddenly found them a little familiar. He pondered carefully and patted his head. So it was them. They were really fated. When the man and woman passed by the peak of the mountain, they didn't stop at all and flew straight to the Een Devil land. Qin Feiyang muttered to himself for a while, and then followed him silently. Not long later, he followed the man and woman into a forest outside the entrance of the Een Devil land. Surprisingly, there were 3 other figures in the forest. The leader was also a young man, wearing a purple robe. He was about 1.8 meters tall and had an extraordinary temperament, but there was a trace of gloominess between his brows. Behind him, there were 2 black-robed men, expressionless and incomparably cold. The purple-robed young man's cultivation was at the Dominator realm, while the 2 black-robed men were at the peak Dominator realm. The man and woman landed in the forest and walked in front of the purple-robed young man, with a fawning smile on their faces, and said, Sorry to have made young Master Tian wait. It's fine. The purple-robed young man called young Master Tian waved his hand and then asked, Do you know why I'm here? Please tell us, young Master Tian. The man and woman looked at the purple-robed young man. Young Master Tian smiled. 2 days ago, this young master heard about the grudge between you and Yun Zifeng. This young master thought about it and decided that the enemy of my enemy is my friend, so this young master decided to help you solve this problem. Really? The man and woman looked at each other, and a trace of joy climbed up their faces. Of course. Young Master Tian nodded and smiled. Let's not talk about the grudge between me and Yun Zifeng. Even if we're all disciples of the deity's palace, this young master can't just leave you in the lurch. Thank you, young Master Tian. The man and woman were extremely grateful. Young Master Tian said, However, you have to cooperate with me. As long as we can solve this problem, we'll do anything. The man and woman said without hesitation. Okay. Now, send him a message and tell him to come here. As long as you can trick him here, this young master will guarantee that he won't be able to return. Young Master Tian smiled coldly, and a terrifying light flashed in his eyes. Hearing this, the man and woman lowered their heads and pondered. Interesting. Qin Feiyang had been standing not far away, watching this scene with his own eyes. He didn't expect that someone would dare to set up a trap to kill Yun Zifeng. One had to know that Yun Zifeng was a member of the Yun family. Without a similar background, who would have such guts? Therefore, this so-called young Master Tian's identity was definitely not ordinary. Wait. For him, wasn't this an opportunity to get close to the Yun family? Yun Zifeng was a disciple of the Yun family. As long as he saved Yun Zifeng later, Yun Zifeng would definitely be grateful to him. At that time, through this relationship, it would be easier to get close to the upper echelons of the Yun family. At this time, the young woman gritted her teeth, looked at the young man beside her, and said, "I'll send him a message." The young man was stunned and frowned. "You didn't erase his contract bridge?" "No. I left his contract bridge in case I need it in the future." The young woman sneered. The man nodded and said, "So it's like that. I thought you really liked him and wanted to leave a way out for yourself." "What do you mean? If I really liked him, would I have followed you to the edge of the world for so long?" The woman glared at the man angrily. Seeing this, the young man in purple said, "Stop arguing, hurry up, don't waste my time." Okay. The man and woman hurriedly nodded. The young woman took out the divine sound transmission stone. After a while, the divine sound transmission stone finally reacted, and the shadow of another young man in purple appeared. That's right, he was Yun Zifeng. "Lu Mei, you stinking bitch, you dare to send me a message?" When Yun Zifeng saw the woman, monstrous anger immediately climbed up his face. "Don't be so agitated." Lu Mei snorted and said indifferently, "This time, I'm sending you a message to ask you, are you going to give me and Zhang Chuan a way out?" "A way out? Do you think it's possible?" Yun Zifeng laughed as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. "Okay. Then come to the Yin Demon land now. We'll deal with it once and for all. But you're only allowed to come alone, otherwise you can forget about seeing us." After Lu Mei finished speaking, she turned off the divine sound transmission stone. And this Lu Mei and Zhang Chuan next to her were the ones who deceived Yun Zifeng. Moreover, at that time, the two of them pretended to be pitiful in front of Qin Feiyang and the others, and almost used their hands to kill Yun Zifeng, Old Black, and the others. Therefore, Qin Feiyang had a deep impression of these two people. Chapter 3491. Qin Feiyang glanced at Zhang Chuan and Lu Mei before looking at the purple-clothed youth. "Young Master Tian, where did this person come from? How dare he plot against Yun Zifeng?" One had to know. As a member of the second most powerful family, Yun Zifeng's status and identity were not to be trifled with. Moreover, he had two perfected dominators as his followers. Although they were worlds apart from the followers of the princes and princesses of the dragons, they were still top-notch in the four continents. Wait. Since the southern continent had the first and second most powerful families, there should also be a third most powerful family. Could it be that the third most powerful family in the southern continent was this so-called Tian family? Zhang Chuan looked at young Master Tian and smiled. He will definitely come and bring people with him. No worries. I know all the people around him. The strongest is a perfected dominator. Young Master Tian waved his hand. Hearing this, Zhang Chuan calmed down and smiled. Then enter the spatial divine item first and wait for him to come. Then we'll catch him off guard. Okay. Young Master Tian nodded with a cold smile in his eyes. He waved his hand and disappeared with the two black-clothed men. With young Master Tian's help, we can definitely solve this problem. At that time, we won't have to be on the run anymore. We can peacefully return to the temple and live our lives. Zhang Chuan held Lu Mei's hand and smiled. Okay. Lu Mei nodded with a smile on her face. As expected of an adulterous couple. Qin Feiyang muttered. In fact, anyone with a brain would know that this was a trap. Because with Zhang Chuan and Lu Mei's strength, if no one helped them, they wouldn't have the guts to ask Yun Zifeng out. He believed that Yun Zifeng would definitely know that there was something strange about this. However, just as Zhang Chuan said, even if Yun Zifeng knew, he would still come. Because Yun Zifeng couldn't stand being deceived and humiliated like this. This was completely treating him like a fool. This wasn't about being impulsive. This was about a man's face and dignity. Time flew by. About a few hundred breaths passed. Clang! Accompanied by a loud sound, a stone door suddenly appeared in the sky. A purple-clothed figure quickly walked out from within. It was Yun Zifeng. Space-time teleportation divine artifact? Qin Feiyang's eyes were filled with astonishment. Although spatial divine objects weren't much in the sky cloud realm, and anyone with a bit of strength and status would have won, this space-time teleportation divine tool was extremely rare. Since Yun Zifeng actually possessed a space-time teleportation divine tool, it seemed that his position in the Yun family was not low. In the meantime, Zhang Chuan and Lu Mei also raised their heads to look at Yun Zifeng. When they saw the stone door, a trace of greed appeared in their eyes. They had coveted this space-time teleportation divine artifact for a long time. In the past, they had thought of all sorts of ways to trick Yun Zifeng into giving it to them. However, Yun Zifeng had protected it very well. Even if it was just to borrow it, he would not agree. This left them with no way to retreat. However, this was an opportunity. As long as young Master Tian got rid of this person, the space-time transmission artifact would be theirs. "We're here," Zhang Chuan said. Yun Zifeng lowered his head and looked at the forest. When he saw the two of them, his eyes were filled with rage. He waved his hand, and the stone gate turned into a ray of light and disappeared into his body. Following closely, he took a step forward and landed in front of the two of them, sweeping his gaze around. "Don't look, it's just the two of us." Zhang Chuan sneered and asked, "Tell me, what do we have to do for you to give us a way out?" When Yun Zifeng heard this, his brows were immediately filled with hostility. He laughed sinisterly and said, "When you lied to me back then, didn't you think that there would be a day like this?" Zhang Chuan chuckled and said, "We didn't think about it, because we thought that you would continue to be so stupid." Yun Zifeng clenched his fists, his eyes burning with rage. He had taken advantage of him, yet he still called him stupid? But suddenly, the corner of his mouth lifted into a mocking smile. He glanced at Lu Mei and then at Zhang Chuan. "That's right, I'm stupid, but I'm a little better than you, because at least I won't let my woman go and seduce other men." Zhang Chuan's eyes darkened. "This is the first time I've seen someone who likes to wear a green hat." Yun Zifeng chuckled, then looked at Lu Mei and shook his head. "Actually, it's not your fault." Lu Mei looked at Yun Zifeng suspiciously. What was wrong with him? He even laughed. "Why do you say it's not your fault?" "Because you can't do anything about it." "Who told you to find such a useless man? He can only let his woman sacrifice her looks in exchange for resources and wealth." Yun Zifeng laughed loudly. He had thought it through now. What was the use of being angry? It would only make things worse for him. He might as well be more open and humiliate this adulterous couple. "You, shut up," Zhang Chuan said word by word, his hands tightly clenched together. "Angry out of humiliation? That's true. What can a person like you do with no status or background do? Actually, it's nothing to have no status or background. As long as you have backbone, dignity, and work hard, it's fine. But what about you? You don't even have the basic backbone and dignity of a human being. Are you worthy of being a human? I think you're no different from a dog." "No. Comparing you to a dog is an insult to dogs. Because if you give a dog a bite to eat, it will at least wag its tail to thank you. Yun Zifeng sneered as he looked at Zhang Chuan like he was looking at a pitiful dog. You're courting death. Zhang Chuan's hair stood on end as a terrifying aura surged towards Yun Zifeng, blotting out the sky and covering the earth. He was an early-stage ruler. Yun Zifeng was only a half-step ruler. It was very easy for him to kill Yun Zifeng. However, there was no fear on Yun Zifeng's face. Instead, it was filled with mockery. Shua. Suddenly, 5 figures appeared in front of Yun Zifeng. They were 5 big men. 1 late-stage ruler and 4 early-stage rulers. The leader was a burly man whose entire body was black like charcoal. He was Yun Zifeng's personal bodyguard, Old Black. As soon as Old He appeared, he slapped out, and Zhang Chuan's aura collapsed. You actually brought people here. Zhang Chuan and Lu Mei stared angrily at Yun Zifeng. Did I say I wouldn't bring people here? Yun Zifeng's face was filled with mockery. He glanced at Old He and said, "Kill them." No, don't kill them. Leave them alive. I want to strip them naked and hang them on the gate of the temple. Let all the disciples of the temple admire this pair of dogs. Yes. Old He nodded. He took a step forward and charged toward the 2. Ha! Zhang Chuan laughed and said mockingly, Yun Zifeng, do you really think I'm here to reconcile? Lu Mei's eyes were also filled with mockery. Yun Zifeng frowned. Boom! At this moment, young Master Tian led the 2 black-clothed men to attack. With lightning speed, they directly crippled Old He's Qi. What? Old He's expression changed. He endured the pain and retreated to Yun Zifeng's side. He roared at the 4 men, "Protect the young master." When the 4 heard this, they immediately stood in front of Yun Zifeng and stared at young Master Tian and the other 2, their eyes full of vigilance. Bastard, it's you. Yun Zifeng looked at young Master Tian with a fierce gaze. That's right. Young Master Tian nodded. I've long thought that this matter wouldn't be so simple, but I didn't expect it to be you. Yun Zifeng's face was full of anger. It seemed that the grudge between the 2 was quite deep. There are many things that you didn't expect. Young Master Tian chuckled and glanced at Zhang Chuan and Lu Mei. At this moment, the 2 of them were standing at the side with sneers on their faces. But suddenly, young Master Tian looked at the 2 black-clothed men. The 2 understood and took a step forward at the same time. They destroyed Zhang Chuan and Lu Mei's sea of qi. Young Master Tian, what are you doing? Zhang Chuan and Lu Mei screamed and looked at young Master Tian in shock and anger. Don't you understand? You're just 2 chess pieces. Do you really think that I'm helping you? With trash like you, I feel that it's beneath me to say another word to you. Besides, although Yun Zifeng is my old rival, our 2 families are friends. If you deceived him, would I let you go? Young Master Tian's face was full of disdain. You bastard! Zhang Chuan and Lu Mei's hearts sank when they heard this. Young Master Tian looked at Yun Zifeng and chuckled. Brother, see? You didn't expect this either, right? I helped you get rid of this adulterous couple. Shouldn't you thank me? What are you trying to do? Yun Zifeng frowned. What am I trying to do? Young Master Tian smiled and waved his hand. The 2 black-robed men attacked again, and once again, they crushed the qi seas of the 4 men in front of Yun Zifeng. After all, they were peak dominators. On Yun Zifeng's side, the strongest person was only a peak dominator. How could he stop them? Seeing this scene, Yun Zifeng immediately gritted his teeth and roared, He Tian, you're courting death. He Tian? Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned. His surname wasn't Tian. He had always thought that this young Master Tian's surname was Tian. It turned out that his surname was He. Since his surname was He, this matter was clear. As expected, this He Tian was definitely a member of the He family. Moreover, his status in the He family was similar to Yun Zifeng's in the Yun family. He Tian looked at the exasperated Yun Zifeng and felt especially delighted. He laughed loudly and said, "Even if I'm courting death, I'm still standing here. If you have the ability, come and kill me." Yun Zifeng clenched his fists tightly. "He Tian, are you trying to start a war between the He family and our Yun family?" Old Black was also burning with anxiety. Before coming, he had advised Yun Zifeng that there might be a trap here. However, Yun Zifeng didn't listen and insisted on coming. Now, great! He had fallen into He Tian's trap. If Yun Zifeng really died here, even if He Tian didn't kill him, when he returned to the family head wouldn't let him off. Hearing this, He Tian was stunned. He looked at Old Black and laughed. "Your words are a bit funny. Is there a need to deliberately start a war between our He family and your Yun family? It has always been there. Besides, our He family isn't afraid of completely falling out with your Yun family." "What do you mean?" Old Black looked at He Tian in shock. Chapter 3492. He Tian laughed, "It means that your Yun family is about to disappear from the southern continent." "How dare you? Even your ancestor wouldn't dare to say such arrogant words." Old He roared. "Huh, a group of ridiculous people, they don't know that the end of the world has arrived. Soon, there will only be one overlord in the southern continent, and that is my He family. As for why? When you reach hell, maybe someone will tell you." He Tian laughed wildly, looked at the two black-clothed men, and shouted, "Kill them all." The two black-clothed men nodded and immediately walked towards Yun Zifeng's group of 6. "Your Excellency is a bit too complacent." Suddenly, a faint laugh sounded in the void. "N?" He Tian was slightly stunned, and immediately looked towards the source of the sound, but there was not even a shadow in the place where the sound came from. At the same time, Zhang Chuan, Lu Mei, the two black-clothed men, and Yun Zifeng's group of 6 all turned their heads to look, their faces filled with a trace of surprise. The two black-clothed men had the same doubts as He Tian. Why was there a sound, but there was no trace of a person? But Zhang Chuan, Lu Mei, and Yun Zifeng's surprise was because this voice was a bit familiar. "It seems to be, it's him." Suddenly, a white figure appeared in their minds at the same time. They still remembered that when they were fighting in the Yin Demon Land, they suddenly met a group of people who were so strong that they defied the heavens. The owner of this voice was the leader of the group, the white-clothed youth. He was actually here. This was too much of a coincidence. Pretending to be mysterious. Suddenly, He Tian let out a roar as his divine sense surged out in all directions. "I'm not pretending to be mysterious, nor am I interested. I'm purely enjoying a good show." As the faint voice sounded, a white-clothed youth walked out of the void. Who else could it be but Qin Feiyang? "Big brother, help me." Yun Zifeng quivered, and hurriedly looked at Qin Feiyang and shouted in surprise. "Brother, help us, we will definitely repay you." Old He and the other 4 also seemed to have seen their savior. However, He Tian and the two black-clothed men revealed a trace of disdain. How strong was he? It turned out that he was just a peak dominator. Yes. After comprehending the 5th profundity of the laws of war, Qin Feiyang's cultivation had reached perfection dominator. He was only a step away from perfection dominator. He Tian looked at Qin Feiyang and chuckled. "Since you've seen it, I'm sorry, but I have to kill you to silence you." "Kill me to silence me?" Qin Feiyang was taken aback. He was impressed by this man's courage. How dare he say such words in front of him? "Kill." He Tian shouted coldly. Murderous intent flashed in the eyes of the two black-robed men. At the same time, they opened their law powers and rushed towards Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang stood motionless in front of Yun Zifeng's group of 6. He Tian thought that Qin Feiyang was scared silly, and a trace of mockery crept onto his face. However, just as the two black-clothed men's fists were about to hit him, Qin Feiyang raised both of his hands. His 5 fingers stretched out like an eagle's claw and immediately grabbed the two men's wrists. "You're courting death." The two of them sneered. "You're the ones courting death." Qin Feiyang shook his head. The law of cause and effect erupted like a volcano, shattering the two men's arms on the spot. The terrifying fluctuation sent the two men flying, spurting blood. "What?" He Tian's face changed. The two black-clothed men's faces were also pale. It was actually the law of cause and effect. So strong. Yun Zifeng's group of 6 looked at Qin Feiyang's back with admiration. Especially Yun Zifeng. The person in front of him looked similar to him, but he actually had such a strong strength. He even mastered the law of cause and effect. At the same time, Zhang Chuan's pupils shrank slightly, and he whispered, "Let's take the opportunity to escape." Lu Mei nodded. Immediately, the two of them quietly retreated, thinking that no one had noticed them. Little did they know that the person they were facing was Qin Feiyang. When Qin Feiyang was fighting, he would never let go of any details. With a wave of his hand, the law of cause and effect emerged, and a large barrier appeared, instantly trapping the two men in place. "Brother, spare us." The two of them hurriedly begged. Qin Feiyang glanced at the two of them and said indifferently, "Do you know who I am? How dare you make use of me? Have we ever made use of you?" The two of them suddenly looked aggrieved. "Last time in the Een Devil Land, you acted pitiful in front of me, wanting to borrow my hand to kill Yun Zifeng and the others. Isn't that making use of me?" Qin Feiyang chuckled. When the two of them heard this, their expressions froze. Qin Feiyang ignored the two of them and looked at He Tian's group of 3, saying, "I heard you say that the Yun family is about to disappear from the southern continent. To have such a big tone, it seems that your He family has chosen to be the dragon's claws?" Dragons? He Tian's group of 3 was stunned. Yun Zifeng's group of 6 was also suspicious. What were dragons? You still don't know about the dragons? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Could it be that the dragons group in the He family did not reveal their identity as divine dragons? "Princess, let's go." The two black-robed men came back to their senses and immediately carried He Tian away. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and used the space-time step, appearing in front of the 3 of them. The two black-robed men panicked and hurriedly cupped their hands. "We were blind and offended Your Excellency. Please forgive us." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and waved his hand. 10 golden lotuses appeared. "What? This is the karma law's ultimate profundity." The two men trembled, their faces filled with fear. He actually grasped the ultimate profundity. Who exactly was this person? He Tian's face was filled with disbelief. How did Yun Zifeng know such a terrifying existence? "Your Excellency, please show mercy. My He family will definitely repay you in the future." The two men were extremely flustered. Although they were also perfected sovereigns, compared to the ultimate profundity, they were worlds apart. The other party could easily kill them. "The He family's gratitude," Qin Feiyang muttered. "That's right. My He family is the #1 family in the southern continent. You can have anything you want." The two men nodded. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and revealed his white teeth. He smiled and said, "Is the #1 family that amazing?" He Tian and the other two were stunned. Yun Zifeng and the other two were stunned. Zhang Chuan and Lu Mei also looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. They never expected Qin Feiyang to say such a thing. What was the number one family? It was the most powerful family in the entire southern continent. Not only did they control half of the temple, but they also controlled half of the southern continent's resources. Such a family was more than amazing. No one could rival them. However, this person actually disdained them. One of the black-robed men sized up Qin Feiyang and transmitted his voice to the other black-robed man. It seems like this person isn't easy to deal with. You take the young master and leave. I'll stay and stop him. Okay. That person responded in the dark and swept He Tian up before rushing forward. You still don't know how to give up? Qin Feiyang muttered. The two golden lotuses carried a terrifying aura as they charged toward He Tian and He Tian. Don't even think about it. Seeing this, the black-clothed man who was blocking Qin Feiyang's way immediately released a destructive aura. Self-destruct? Qin Feiyang was stunned, and the mockery in his eyes became even thicker. With a wave of his hand, the remaining 8 golden lotuses immediately swarmed over and drowned the black-clothed man. Accompanied by a painful scream, the black-clothed man was annihilated on the spot. At the same time, the other 2 golden lotuses also landed on He Tian and He Tian. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed. He used the spacetime step and arrived in front of He Tian. He grabbed He Tian's shoulder and retreated. However, the black-robed man wasn't so lucky. He died on the spot, his blood splattering across the sky. This is the power of a supreme law. They're both peak sovereigns, but they can't resist at all. This is too terrifying. When Yun Zifeng and the others saw this scene, they were all dumbfounded. When their gazes landed on Qin Feiyang again, not only was there reverence, there was also a trace of fear. Qin Feiyang scanned the battlefield and smiled faintly. He casually destroyed He Tian's Sea of Qi and landed in front of Yun Zifeng's group of 6. Yun Zifeng's group of 6 looked at each other and bowed. Greetings, young Master Qin. Young Master Qin. Zhang Chuan, Lu Mei, and He Tian were stunned. Qin Feiyang was also surprised. He threw He Tian to the ground and looked at Yun Zifeng. You recognized me? Yun Zifeng nodded. The last time I saw you, I felt that you looked familiar. When I went back and asked around, I found out that you were the famous Qin Feiyang. What? He's Qin Feiyang. Zhang Chuan and the other 2's eyes trembled as they sized up Qin Feiyang in shock. That's right. He's Qin Feiyang, whose name shook the sky cloud realm. Now you know why he didn't put your He clan in his eyes. Yun Zifeng sneered as he looked at He Tian, who was sitting on the ground in a sorry state. Hearing this, He Tian's eyes were filled with fear. Who in the sky cloud realm didn't know the name Qin Feiyang? He was the terrifying existence who had single-handedly destroyed the Blood Hall. Even their He clan's old ancestor paled when he heard the name Qin Feiyang. They didn't expect to meet such a person. Qin Feiyang glanced at He Tian and then at Yun Zifeng. Since you already know my identity, why did you pretend not to know before? Yun Zifeng couldn't help but lower his head with a trace of panic on his face. Old Black hurriedly explained, Young Master Qin, my young master was afraid of offending you, so he didn't say anything. Am I that scary? Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched as he laughed. Yes. Yun Zifeng nodded instinctively, but then his expression changed as he hurriedly shook his head. No. I didn't say you were scary. I'm sorry. I'm a little nervous, I can see that. Qin Feiyang shook his head helplessly. He was a little depressed to be able to scare an adult to such an extent that he couldn't even speak properly. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, Yun Zifeng repeatedly apologized. It's okay. Qin Feiyang waved his hand as he took out a few Sky Sun spirit pills and threw them to them. Thank you. Yun Zifeng was slightly taken aback as he hurriedly grabbed the pills and thanked him again. Chapter 3493. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but rub his forehead. Although he had the sovereign divine weapon and the slaughter domain, he didn't seem to have done anything outrageous. Was there a need to be so afraid of him? It was true. Even he himself did not know when his face could scare a living person to this extent. Qin Feiyang looked at Yun Zifeng and said, "Zhang Chuan, Lu Mei, you can do whatever you want with them, but leave He Tian to me." "Sure, sure." Yun Zifeng nodded. Qin Feiyang turned to He Tian and asked with a faint smile, "Do you want to live?" "Yes." He Tian nodded without hesitation. His arrogant attitude from before had completely disappeared. Just like Yun Zifeng, he was so scared that he was trembling. "Good. You'll answer whatever I ask you. If you hesitate, don't blame me for being merciless." Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment before asking, "First question, have any strangers come to your He family recently?" "Yes." He Tian nodded. "Strangers?" Yun Zifeng and Old He were stunned. They pricked up their ears to listen. Qin Feiyang asked, "Have you seen these people before?" "No." He Tian shook his head. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and said with a smile, "I think it's these people who gave you the courage to say that the Yun family will disappear from the southern continent." "That's right. Although I don't know their identities, I heard from my father that these people are very powerful. Not only can they help us deal with the Yun family, but they can also help us take control of the deity's Templar and the sovereign divine weapon." He Tian didn't dare to hide the truth. "What? They really want to make a move on our Yun family?" Yun Zifeng and Old He looked at each other, their eyes filled with shock. What kind of existence could give the He family such confidence? Although the Yun family hadn't developed as well as the He family, it wouldn't be easy to destroy them. Qin Feiyang said, "What else? Did they say they want to deal with me?" "Deal with you?" He Tian was slightly taken aback. He shook his head and said, "I didn't say that." Qin Feiyang remained silent for a while before smiling. "I don't think you're qualified to know this. Second question, when is your He family going to make a move against the Yun family?" "According to father, we'll make our move once those big shots have recovered from their injuries." He Tian thought for a moment and said. "Then, do you know how they got injured?" Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. He Tian shook his head. "You don't know, but I do. I was the one who destroyed their bodies. They are my mortal enemies. Your He clan actually colluded with them. It seems that I am still too benevolent and did not let you feel despair." Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with killing intent. "They are your mortal enemies?" He Tian looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. When he came back to his senses, he hurriedly said, "My He clan didn't know about this at all. Why don't you let me go? I'll tell my father and the others to stay away from those people." "How did it become like this?" "The people who came to look for the He clan were the mortal enemies of this ferocious person. Wouldn't working with these people be making an enemy out of Qin Feiyang? You don't know, but your He clan's old ancestor definitely knows. However, I do need you to go back and help me pass a message to your He clan's old ancestor." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Please tell me." He Tian quickly smiled. As long as he could leave this place alive, he would listen to anything. As for whether he would follow Qin Feiyang's instructions when he returned to the clan, it would depend on his mood. Qin Feiyang sized He Tian up and revealed a smile. He Tian also smiled apologetically. However, when he saw the smile on Qin Feiyang's face, he couldn't help but feel nervous. "Last question. Where are those strangers staying in your He clan?" Qin Feiyang asked. "The back of the mountain." He Tian replied. "Not bad. You are very honest. Qin Feiyang chuckled. Of course, of course. He Tian nodded. His head was hanging on the edge of a blade. How could he not be honest? Qin Feiyang formed a seal with both hands. A puppet seal appeared and entered He Tian's head at lightning speed, forcefully controlling him. What did you do to me? He Tian was shocked. Nothing much. I just controlled you. As long as you are obedient, I will consider removing my control over you. Now, you can go back. Qin Feiyang smiled and waved his hand. He Tian's face turned pale. He thought he could escape safely, but he didn't expect his life to still be in the other party's hands. Qin Feiyang said, Do you need me to send you back? No, no. He Tian quickly waved his hand and rose to the sky. He didn't even look back. Yun Zifeng was stunned. He turned to Qin Feiyang and asked, You really let him go? Young master, don't talk too much. Old He and the others' faces changed when they heard that. They quickly reprimanded him. Yun Zifeng's eyes trembled when he heard that. He quickly looked at Qin Feiyang and said with a flattering smile, I don't mean anything. I'm just asking. As long as you are happy. Qin Feiyang was about to answer when he heard Yun Zifeng's words. He was speechless to the extreme. If you say that I am angry now, you can be so afraid. But do I look angry now? What are you afraid of with such a kind face? Qin Feiyang sighed helplessly. He looked at them and said, If you have any questions, just ask. No, no. They quickly waved their hands. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and said angrily, Do you have to force me to talk to you with a straight face? No, we don't dare. They panicked and quickly waved their hands. Qin Feiyang looked at the sky, speechless. He waved his hand and said, You can go. He originally wanted to talk to these people, but now it seemed that there was no way to talk normally. He might as well go find the Yun clan's old ancestor. Yun Zifeng and the others looked at each other and cupped their hands. Then we won't disturb you. After saying that, they hurriedly ran away. Qin Feiyang pointed at Zhang Chuan and Yun Zifeng, speechless. Don't you want the two of them? Yun Zifeng was stunned. He turned to look at Zhang Chuan and Yun Zifeng and nodded. Yes, yes, yes. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the barrier disappeared. Zhang Chuan and Yun Zifeng immediately turned and ran. Still want to run? A murderous intent flashed in old He's eyes. He rushed over at lightning speed and grabbed the two. Thank you, Qin Dage. This little brother will never forget your life-saving grace. When you are free in the future, you must come to the Yun clan to play. Yun Zifeng looked at Qin Feiyang and said these words. Then, he followed old He and the others, as if they were running for their lives, and disappeared into the mountains ahead. Qin Feiyang's face was dark. Life-saving grace? He still had time to play at the Yun clan? With this reaction, he obviously hoped that he would never appear again. Headache. Qin Feiyang sighed helplessly. It was not a good thing to be too dazzling. Swish. At this time, the white-eyed wolf appeared in the sky and looked down suspiciously. He landed in front of Qin Feiyang and asked, Was there a battle here? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and briefly told him what had happened. After hearing this, the white-eyed wolf couldn't help but laugh. I'm depressed, and you're still laughing? Qin Feiyang glared at him. What's there to be depressed about? You should be proud to be able to scare people from the two great families like this. The white-eyed wolf bared his fangs. I really don't feel proud. Qin Feiyang shook his head and asked, Did you personally hand over the pills to them? Of course. The white-eyed wolf nodded, then looked around and asked, Then, are we going directly to the Yun clan? No hurry. I'll meet the ancestor of the He clan first. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and a flash of light flashed in his eyes. Generally speaking, when he controlled others, he would use the slave seal, and rarely used the puppet technique. As long as he used the puppet technique, there must be another purpose. Following closely, a man and a wolf also disappeared into the mountains ahead. Above a mountain ridge, Old He brought Yun Zifeng and the others as fast as lightning, and even used all of his strength. Yun Zifeng looked behind, patted Old He's shoulder, and said, "Old He, take a rest." Hearing this, Old He finally slowed down, and then brought the others to the top of a giant mountain below. Yun Zifeng let out a long breath, looked at Old He and the others, and asked, "Was I very embarrassed just now?" Old He and the others were stunned, then smiled bitterly and said, "A little." After all, the other party was their savior, but they looked at him as if he was a devil. Fortunately, the other party had a good temper, or else he would have slapped them to death on the spot. "Don't tell anyone about this. It's too embarrassing. But there's nothing we can do. He's Qin Feiyang after all." Yun Zifeng shook his head and sighed. Just this name alone felt like a majestic mountain, pressing down on him until he couldn't breathe. Don't worry. We definitely won't tell anyone." Old He nodded, then pondered for a while and said, "But we have to report the He clan's matter to the patriarch." Hearing this, Yun Zifeng and the other four people's faces darkened slightly. At that time, He Tian would definitely not lie. In other words, what they had heard before was true. This matter concerned the life and death of the Yun clan, and it couldn't be taken lightly. Old He pointed at Zhang Chuan and Lu Mei and asked, "Young master, how should we deal with them?" Yun Zifeng immediately looked at the two of them, a cold light flashing in his eyes. Zhang Chuan and Lu Mei's eyes trembled slightly, and their faces were extremely pale. Lu Mei suddenly knelt in front of Yun Zifeng and cried, "Brother Feng, don't kill me. Actually, I like you. I was forced by Zhang Chuan. Believe me, I never thought of lying to you." Zhang Chuan was instantly dumbfounded. Yun Zifeng, Old He, and the others were also astonished. This woman was too good at turning hostile, wasn't she? In the blink of an eye, the spearhead was pointed at her man. "Really? Let me go, and I'll serve you well in the future. I'll do whatever you want me to do." Lu Mei's weeping beauty not only didn't arouse Yun Zifeng's sympathy, but he was even more disgusted. He was also extremely vexed. How could he have been so blind to like this woman? How could this kind of trash be worthy of him? Yun Zifeng. Cry slowly. Anyway, there's still a long way to go. Yun Zifeng sneered and looked at Old He. "Do as I said before. Strip them all naked and hang them on the gate of the Divine Hall." Hearing this, Zhang Chuan and Lu Mei immediately collapsed on the ground, completely disheartened. This is not appropriate. After all, the gate is the face of the Divine Hall. It's improper to hang them there naked. Even if the patriarch agrees, the ancestor won't. Old He said with some difficulty. Yun Zifeng frowned and looked at Zhang Chuan and Lu Mei gloomily. He said in a deep voice, "Then hang them in the central square of Yunhan City." This, Old He hesitated and nodded. "Okay, after all, it's our territory." Then, Old He grabbed the two of them and quickly left with Yun Zifeng and the other four. Chapter 3494. Southern Continent, Central Region. There were two cities here. They were called Cloud Han City and Seven Star City. The two cities were about the same size and were only 1,000,000 miles apart. They occupied the entire central region of the southern continent. In the southern continent, these two cities were places that countless people yearned for. Because Cloud Han City and Seven Star City were the largest and most prosperous cities in the entire southern continent. The reason was because of the owners of these two cities. The owner of Cloud Han City was the Yun family. The owner of Seven Star City was the He family. Just these two families occupied almost half of the resources in the southern continent. Therefore, many people were born with these two cities as their goal. If they could step into these two cities, it would be a great honor. If they could stay in these two cities for a long time, they would be superior in front of others. 7-Star City. A tall and majestic city wall surrounded the city like a giant python. The entire city had a total of 4 city gates. East Gate, West Gate, North Gate, and South Gate. The city was divided into 5 districts, North, South, East, and West, as well as the inner city. The inner city was also the central city. The He family's territory was in the inner city. To put it simply, the entire inner city was the He family's private garden. Although there were hundreds of millions of people in 7-Star City, only the He family was qualified to step into the inner city. As for the others, without the He family's permission, no matter how strong they were or how high their status was, they had to stop outside the inner city gate. At this moment, outside the inner city gate, under a big tree by the side of the street, stood a white-haired old man in sackcloth. The old man was emaciated and looked weak. His eyes were dim and lifeless. There was a gray fat cat lying at his feet. It was yawning lazily and its fur was dirty and messy. "There's actually someone guarding here?" the fat cat muttered. There were 4 guards in front of the city gate. They were wearing battle armor and holding spears. Their eyes were sharp. Moreover, their cultivation was very powerful. They were all perfection stage sovereigns. Not only that, in the sky above the inner city, one could faintly sense a fluctuation of the power of law. Obviously, the inner city was like the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. It was enveloped by an invisible barrier. In other words, it was impossible for them to sneak in. The fat cat stretched and looked at the linen-clothed old man. "What do we do?" The old man in sackcloth glanced at the city gate and said with a faint smile, "There's no need to go in. When I came here, I saw a restaurant. Let's go there first." After saying that, the sackcloth old man turned around and staggered away. Restaurant? The fat cat was stunned for a moment before it regained its spirit and chased after the old man. After turning a corner and entering the main street, the place immediately became lively. The shops on both sides of the street were dazzling, and there was an endless stream of people going in and out. The linen-clothed old man didn't look at anything else and went straight to a restaurant 100 meters away. The restaurant had a total of 10 floors. Antique. Above the door, there were 3 eye-catching words, Guanyu Tower. The old man in sackcloth brought the fat cat into the restaurant. A waiter immediately welcomed him with a smile. "Sir, are you here for a meal or a place to stay?" "Stay in the hotel. Help me arrange a quiet room." The sackcloth old man laughed hoarsely. "No problem, but it's not cheap at Guanyu Tower," the waiter said while sizing up the old man in sackcloth. His clothes were tattered and his aura was barely detectable. Obviously, he wasn't an expert. "Don't worry, I won't go back on my word. Plus, this old man doesn't dare to dine and dash." The old man in sackcloth chuckled. "That's different. What kind of people don't you have in this world? Especially some old men and women. Taking advantage of your age to flaunt your seniority. More importantly, people don't dare to hit or scold you, or they'll stick to you forever." The waiter laughed disdainfully and then looked at the old man in sackcloth. "Sir, please don't blame me. I'm not against you, I'm just a little worried." The old man in sackcloth shook his head and smiled. He waved his hand and a pile of divine crystals appeared in front of the waiter. It was like a small mountain, almost occupying the entire aisle. He asked, "Is this enough for a day?" The waiter was slightly stunned and quickly nodded. Yes, yes. The old man in sackcloth said, then these are your tips. The money for the wine will be calculated separately. Lead the way. Okay. Thank you, sir. The waiter was overjoyed. He didn't expect to meet such a generous old man. After putting away the divine crystals, he immediately ran to the front and led the old man upstairs. After a while, the two of them went up to the 8th floor. The waiter led the old man into a corner room. The room wasn't big and the decorations were ordinary. However, it was tidy and clean. There was also an independent tea room. This was what Qin Feiyang was most satisfied with. The waiter arranged everything and asked, Sir, what do you want to eat? Ask it. The old man in sackcloth pointed at the big fat cat beside him and said. He walked to the window alone and opened it. There was a hint of surprise on his face. Standing in front of the window, he could actually see the inner city gate clearly. Not bad. At the same time, the waiter looked at the big fat cat and was stunned. He didn't even notice that there was a pet. He then smiled and said, Kitty, what do you want to eat? Of course, good wine and good food. Remember, it must be the best wine. The big fat cat's eyes lit up and said with anticipation. Okay. The waiter nodded and shouted before he turned and strode away. The old man in sackcloth turned to look at the big fat cat and said, I'm going to take a look at the He family. Don't disturb me. The big fat cat was stunned. I don't need to go myself. Someone will go for me. The old man in sackcloth chuckled and walked into the tea room. He sat beside the tea table and slowly closed his eyes as if he was resting. Someone will go for us? The big fat cat looked at the old man in sackcloth in astonishment. What did he mean? Suddenly, it slapped its head and scolded, what a pig brain. Don't we have the puppet art? That's right. This man and cat were Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. With their current cultivation, it wasn't difficult for them to find out the location of the He family. Therefore, after understanding the situation in 7-Star City, they rushed here. Inner City. Just like the imperial palace of the great Qin Empire, there were many halls and it was magnificent. No. To be exact, it was bigger and more magnificent than the imperial palace of the great Qin Empire. On a small winding path, a purple-clothed youth walked alone with his head lowered. His face was filled with distress. This person was He Tian. He originally wanted to plot against Yun Zifeng, but he didn't expect that someone would appear. Not only did he not get rid of this mortal enemy, but his life had also fallen into the hands of others. What was more terrifying was that this person was the infamous Qin Feiyang. What should he do? How could he break free from the control? He couldn't be controlled by the other party forever. As a disciple of the He family, he definitely wouldn't allow such a thing to happen. Let's find Father. Father should have a way. He Tian quickened his pace and walked towards a magnificent hall in the depths. Wait. Didn't Qin Feiyang ask me to pass a message to the old ancestor? He didn't seem to want to pass a message. Who cares? I'll just break free from the control first. About 100 breaths later, He Tian walked to the front of the hall. The door was half closed and there were 4 guards outside. Greetings, young master. When the 4 guards saw He Tian, they hurriedly bowed respectfully. Where's Father? He Tian asked. The family head is inside. One of the guards pointed at the hall. He Tian took a deep breath and strode into the main hall. He immediately saw a middle-aged man sitting in front of a tea table, ignoring the tea on the table. His brows were furrowed, as if he was thinking about something. Father. He Tian walked in front of the middle-aged man and bowed. The middle-aged man was stunned. He raised his head and looked at He Tian. A doting smile appeared on his face as he asked, "Why didn't you cultivate in the temple? Why did you come back?" He Tian hesitated for a while and suddenly knelt on the ground. He shouted, "Father, save me." The middle-aged man was shocked. He stood up and asked, "What's the situation?" "I'm being controlled," He Tian said. "What?" The middle-aged man's expression changed. He said angrily, "Who has the guts to control my son?" He Tian stammered. His face was filled with fear. "Speak, who is it?" He Qinggang said angrily. He is Qin Feiyang." He Tian gritted his teeth and gathered his courage to shout at He Qinggang. "Qin Feiyang?" He Qinggang's expression froze. He suddenly felt a chill in his heart. He asked, "Aren't you at the temple? How did you meet him? And why is he controlling you? My He family has never had any disputes with him. Did you do something to offend him?" He Tian's face was pale and he was flustered. Even his father was afraid of this Qin Feiyang. Because, based on his father's character, if it was someone else who dared to control his son, he would definitely bring people to seek justice. But now, his father's first reaction was not to take revenge for him but to reprimand him. What did this mean? It meant that his father was also afraid of Qin Feiyang. "Tell me now, or I'll kill you," He Qinggang roared. "It's like this." He Tian's body and mind trembled. He hurriedly explained the situation in detail. "Bastard!" After hearing this, He Qinggang did not comfort He Tian. Instead, he became even angrier. He raised his hand and slapped He Tian hard on the face. He Tian was sent flying. The teeth in his mouth were broken and blood splattered on the ground. "Father, please spare my life." He Tian ignored the pain and crawled up, kneeling on the ground and begging. "Spare your life? Do you know how much trouble you've brought to my He family? Although those mysterious big shots have indeed agreed to help us deal with the Yun family, their injuries have not healed yet. Now you've gone to provoke Yun Zifeng. You've gotten carried away. The most hateful thing is that you actually told all these things to Qin Feiyang. Do you know what kind of disaster this will bring to our He family?" He Qinggang's face was filled with anger. If not for the fact that he was his biological son, he would have slapped him to death. Chapter 3495. I was wrong. I won't do it again. Father, please save me. He Tian cried. If this went on, he would break down. He had hoped that his father would comfort him so that he would feel better. However, he had never expected to be scolded and berated. Useless unfilial son. He Qinggang snorted and took out the sacred voice transmission stone. Soon, an elder with white hair appeared. He was wearing a black robe. Although he was in his 70s or 80s, his body was strong and he exuded the aura of a king. Old ancestor. He Qinggang bowed respectfully. What's wrong? The elder looked at He Qinggang calmly. He Qinggang said respectfully, Old ancestor, there's an urgent matter that requires your attention. It's best that you come immediately. It's related to Qin Feiyang. The old ancestor of the He family didn't pay much attention to it at first. However, when he heard the name Qin Feiyang, his eyes narrowed. Immediately after, he stood up and opened a space-time portal. He landed in front of He Qinggang. Looking at He Tian, who was kneeling at the side, the old ancestor of the He family raised his eyebrows. Then, he put away the sacred voice transmission stone and asked He Qinggang, what's the urgent matter? He Qinggang sighed and told him what had happened to He Tian. What? The old ancestor of the He family was shocked. He looked at He Tian and said angrily, are you crazy? How dare you tell Qin Feiyang about those lords? Old ancestor, I'm sorry. But I had no choice. If I didn't tell him, he would have killed me. He Tian said anxiously. The old ancestor of the He family was so angry that his body was trembling. He glared at He Qinggang and shouted, "This is the good son that you taught." The entire plan was ruined by him. Old ancestor, please calm down. He's just a child after all. Furthermore, the person he's facing is Qin Feiyang. We all know of Qin Feiyang's abilities. Even we feel reverence toward him, much less a child like him. He's just unlucky. He Qinggang sighed. Even a vicious tiger wouldn't hurt its cubs. Therefore, he pleaded for He Tian in the face of the old ancestor's anger. He's still a child. He Qinggang, how can you still have the face to say this? Look at Qin Feiyang, then look at Madman Mo. Which one of them isn't younger than your son? But look at their current achievements. Can your son compare to them? Your good-for-nothing son isn't even fit to carry their shoes. The He clan's old ancestors' eyes were filled with rage. Yes, yes, yes. He Qinggang nodded. The old ancestor was clearly enraged and could not continue to go against him. Otherwise, even he, the current patriarch of the He clan, would not be able to withstand the old ancestor's anger. Needless to say, He Tian, who was beside him, was so scared that he cowered there, not daring to move an inch. Sigh. The He clan's old ancestor sighed and looked at He Qinggang. This old man doesn't want my He clan's descendants to be compared to Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo, but at least they won't be too stupid. He Qinggang said, I will do my best to teach them in the future. Forget it. This old man knows better than you how capable our descendants are. The He clan's old ancestor waved his hand and turned to look at He Tian. After pondering for a while, he shook his head and said, even if this old man has the ability to remove Qin Feiyang's control over him, I can't do that now. Why? He Qinggang was puzzled. He Tian was also puzzled. The He clan's old ancestor said, because once you remove his control, it will be equivalent to admitting to Qin Feiyang that we have joined forces with those mysterious people. He Qinggang said, but doesn't he already know that we have joined forces with those mysterious people? He knows, but we can still explain. Because he doesn't know whether we joined forces with them willingly or were forced to do so. The He clan's old ancestor sneered and continued, whether we joined forces with them willingly or not, only we know in our hearts. Qin Feiyang can only guess. How about this? Send someone to look for Qin Feiyang. When you find him, tell him that we were forced to join forces with those mysterious people because we had no other choice. Is there any point to that? He Tian mumbled. What do you know? This is called a stalling tactic. Appease Qin Feiyang first. If he knows that we willingly joined forces with those mysterious people, he will definitely attack the He clan. Do you have the ability to fight against Qin Feiyang's two sovereign divine weapons? The He clan's old ancestor shouted angrily. He Tian shrank his neck and immediately fell silent. He didn't dare to utter another word. He Qinggang pondered for a while and then gave him a thumbs up. He smiled and said, Old ancestor, you are wise. Stall Qin Feiyang first. When those people recover from their injuries, we will set up a death trap and lure Qin Feiyang here. At that time, we can eliminate the source of trouble and eliminate all future troubles. That's right. If you can really find him, you can also tell him that we are willing to cooperate with him to eliminate those mysterious people. As long as we can gain his trust, it will be much easier to set up a trap to kill him in the future. The He clan's old ancestor smiled coldly, looking like a scheming old fox. Okay. He Qinggang nodded and then looked at He Tian and asked, what did you say Qin Feiyang asked you to tell us? However, at this time, He Tian lowered his head and didn't speak. His eyes were extremely strange. He asked you a question. He Qinggang shouted. He Tian slowly raised his head and looked at the two of them. There was no longer fear on his face. Instead, it was replaced by a look of mockery. He Qinggang and He Tian looked at each other and felt that something was wrong. He Tian laughed and said, "Old ancestor, you are indeed the old ancestor. You are so good at scheming against others." He Tian, what did you say? He Qinggang hurriedly shouted. However, He Tian turned a deaf ear to him. He looked at the He clan's old ancestor and said with a smile, "Although those mysterious people are scary, I am not to be trifled with. The Blood Hall is a bloody example. It seems that the He clan wants to follow in the footsteps of the Blood Hall." The He clan's old ancestor's pupils shrank. He Qinggang was also bewildered. What the hell was going on? Why did this child suddenly seem like a different person? This is just the beginning. The show will start slowly. Be prepared. After He Tian finished speaking, a destructive aura rushed out from his body and he exploded in the main hall. He Qinggang and He Tian didn't expect this scene at all. The entire main hall was destroyed in an instant. Terrifying shockwaves rolled out in all directions. The guards outside were in a complete mess. Their eyes were filled with shock. What was going on? Fortunately, their cultivation was relatively strong. Otherwise, He Tian's self-explosion would be enough to kill them instantly. Even the people outside of the 4 great districts could hear the loud explosion and the destructive shockwaves of the explosion. At this time, Qin Feiyang, who was sitting beside the tea table, slowly opened his eyes. There was a trace of a smile in his eyes. White-eyed Wolf was drinking and eating when he heard the explosion. He looked out of the window and saw Qin Feiyang walking out of the tea room. He asked, "You did this? What else could it be?" Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and walked to the opposite side of White-eyed Wolf. He picked up a wine pot and took a sip. This puppet technique is really convenient. White-eyed Wolf bared his teeth and asked, "What is the attitude of the He clan? Isn't it obvious?" Qin Feiyang looked at him helplessly, walked to the window, and looked at the chaotic inner city. Actually, even if the He clan's position was not to help either side, he wouldn't do this. But unfortunately, the He clan had chosen the dragons and was even prepared to set up a trap to kill him. Of course, he wouldn't be polite. On the other side, Cloud Han City. Similarly, in a large hall, Yun Zifeng, Old Black, and the other 4 stood in the middle of the hall with their heads lowered. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Above them, a middle-aged man in white sat upright. His body was slender and thin, and his temperament was refined. However, there was a trace of anger on his face. Cough cough. Yun Zifeng coughed dryly, and couldn't hold it in any longer. He raised his head and looked at the middle-aged man in white, and said, "Father, if you want to scold me, then scold me. I'm already mentally prepared." Hearing this, the middle-aged man in white's face immediately darkened. Yun Zifeng said again, "Why don't you beat me up and vent your anger?" "Brat, I really want to beat you up." The middle-aged man in white angrily scolded, and said, "Look at you, you're my son, Yun Guanghui's son, and you're actually being played around by a woman. Tell me, aren't you a coward? Father, don't hit people in the face, don't expose people's shortcomings. You're too hurtful." Yun Zifeng said angrily. "If you're afraid of being talked about, then don't give others something to use against you. You still have the nerve to hang them in the central square. Do you think you're humiliating them by doing this? This is humiliating yourself." Yun Guanghui glared at Yun Zifeng, then looked at Old Black and the others and said, "You guys, immediately go to the square and kill them, and find a place to bury them." "Yes." The few of them replied respectfully, then turned around and left quickly. I haven't vented my anger yet. Yun Zifeng looked at Yun Guanghui unhappily. Scram. Immediately, scram as far as you can. Yun Guanghui pointed outside and shouted. Yun Zifeng pursed his lips and turned to walk outside, muttering, "Fine, I'll scram. But don't say that I didn't tell you about Qin Feiyang in advance." Qin Feiyang? Yun Guanghui was slightly stunned, then quickly shouted, "Stop, what did you just say?" Yun Zifeng stopped and looked at Yun Guanghui. "Didn't you tell me to scram? Brat, are you really itching for a beating?" Yun Guanghui stepped in front of Yun Zifeng and said fiercely. Yun Zifeng chuckled and sighed, "Father, you don't know, but this time, I was able to escape from death because of this Qin Feiyang." "Speak clearly." Yun Guanghui looked at him with a somewhat heavy expression. "You don't have to be so nervous. This Qin Feiyang is actually quite a good person." Yun Zifeng also recounted the situation back then in detail. "What? The He family wants to attack the Yun family?" Yun Guanghui was shocked. "Although I'm not a good person, I've never lied to you. It's said that the He family has the help of a group of mysterious people. I heard Qin Feiyang mention at the beginning that they seem to be some kind of dragons. I'm guessing that they should be the mysterious force that has been chasing after Qin Feiyang in the eastern and western continents recently," Yun Zifeng said. Chapter 3496. I've heard about this as well. Yun Guanghui nodded. "Then, who do you think has a higher chance of winning?" Yun Zifeng asked. "We all know about Qin Feiyang's methods. 2 sovereign divine weapons, slaughter domain, and his own terrifying talent. It can be said that he has the qualifications to dominate the sky cloud realm." Yun Guanghui pondered as he spoke. "His talent is indeed terrifying. He has already comprehended the karma law's supreme profundity." Yun Zifeng nodded. "What? He comprehended the karma law's supreme profundity?" Yun Guanghui looked at Yun Zifeng in surprise. "Yes. I saw it with my own eyes. It's terrifying." Yun Zifeng's face was full of envy. "Incredible. The karma law's supreme profundity. Even if he doesn't open the slaughter domain or use the sovereign divine weapon, he can still crush most perfect sovereigns." Yun Guanghui was amazed. How could there be such a terrifying monster in this world? Crush perfect sovereigns? Isn't that too exaggerated? After all, there's a difference of a small realm. Yun Zifeng said. "What do you know? The supreme profundity of a supreme law can kill enemies of a higher realm." Yun Guanghui rolled his eyes and continued, "We all know about Qin Feiyang's methods. As for that mysterious force, although we don't know much about them, according to our spies in the eastern continent, they seem to have many sovereign divine weapons." "Many?" Yun Zifeng was stunned and asked suspiciously, "How many is a lot?" "How would I know? I didn't see it with my own eyes. However, from the fact that Qin Feiyang and the others didn't dare to confront this force directly, we can see that they are also afraid of this force. Therefore, if we're talking about winning or losing, this mysterious force should have a higher chance of winning. However, we can't look at Qin Feiyang with ordinary eyes. Therefore, it's really hard to predict who will win or lose." Yun Guanghui shook his head. "If that's the case, then we can't choose a side?" Yun Zifeng frowned. "Choose a side?" Yun Guanghui was stunned and looked at Yun Zifeng in confusion. "Yeah. The He clan has already colluded with those mysterious people to attack our Yun clan. That's just a matter of time. We can't just sit here and wait for death, right? Either we cooperate with those mysterious people, or we cooperate with Qin Feiyang. There is no third path," Yun Zifeng said. Yun Guanghui looked at Yun Zifeng in astonishment. Yun Zifeng had actually thought of this. Not bad. It seemed that he had underestimated this son of his. After pondering for a while, Yun Guanghui shook his head and said, "Neither of these paths is easy to take." "That's for sure." Yun Zifeng nodded. The He family had already cooperated with those mysterious people, so if the Yun family went to look for the mysterious people now, the He family would definitely take the lead. In other words, at that time, their Yun family would most likely become a subsidiary of the He family. If that was really the case, then the Yun family would never have the chance to rise again. Once they became a subsidiary of the He clan, the Yun clan would lose control of the other half of the Dominator weapon. The most important thing was that if they cooperated with that mysterious force, they would definitely suffer Qin Feiyang's revenge. The Yun family did not have the ability to face Qin Feiyang's anger. As for cooperating with Qin Feiyang, it was tantamount to declaring war on that mysterious force. If Qin Feiyang won in the end, that would be good. But if Qin Feiyang lost, then the Yun family would be buried with him. Both choices were very risky. "I'll report this matter to the ancestor first and see what he thinks," Yun Guanghui rubbed his forehead and said. Yun Guanghui rubbed his forehead. Then, he patted Yun Zifeng's shoulder and said with a smile, "No matter what, this time, you have done a great service by accident. When the time comes, I will report this to the ancestor and give you a reward. It's no big deal." Yun Zifeng waved his hand and smiled proudly. Yun Guanghui rolled his eyes at him. Just as he was about to leave, Old He rushed back alone. "What's wrong?" The father and son looked at him suspiciously. Old He took a deep breath, looked at the father and son, and said excitedly, "Patriarch, young master, just a while ago, something big happened in Seven Star City." "What big thing made you so excited?" Yun Zifeng smiled. Old He said, "According to the spies we arranged in the He family, He Tian self-destructed in front of He Qinggang and the ancestor of the He family." "What? Self-destructed?" Yun Zifeng was stunned, then laughed and said, "This is indeed a joyous occasion." "Shut up." Yun Guanghui glared at him and asked Old He, "Is the news true?" "It's true." Old He nodded. "What's going on? Why would He Tian self-destruct in front of He Qinggang? This doesn't make sense. Even if He Tian made a mistake, with He Qinggang's love for him, he wouldn't have forced him to self-destruct." Yun Guanghui frowned. There must be another reason. When Yun Zifeng and Old He heard this, they were slightly stunned. "That's right, why would he self-destruct? Could it be, suddenly?" The two of them looked at each other, and a trace of shock appeared in their eyes. "What did you think?" Yun Guanghui looked at the two of them suspiciously. When He Tian left, Qin Feiyang used a kind of control secret technique to control him. "So we were thinking, could He Tian's strange self-destruction have something to do with Qin Feiyang?" Yun Zifeng said. Hearing this, Yun Guanghui's pupils shrank. He could actually control him to self-destruct? This was too terrifying. Old He said in a deep voice, "I feel that it should be his masterpiece. This is a show of strength to the He family, warning them not to meddle in other people's business." Yun Zifeng shook his head and said, "If it's just a warning, he shouldn't kill He Tian. After all, he is He Qinggang's son." Fenger has a point. The hatred of killing one's son is irreconcilable. I think Qin Feiyang wouldn't be so stupid as to directly use this method to warn them. If I'm not wrong, Qin Feiyang killing He Tian is a direct declaration of war against the He family. And it can be seen that the He family has indeed formed an alliance with that mysterious force. Otherwise, Qin Feiyang wouldn't be so ruthless. Yun Guanghui analyzed logically, and an inexplicable light flashed in his eyes. It turns out that he was already planning when he was in the Yin Demon Land. How terrifying. Old He sighed. Yes. We really can't afford to offend such a person. Alright, I'll go and discuss with the ancestor first. You guys also pass down the order, tell everyone in the family to be more down-to-earth during this period of time. If anyone dares to provoke Qin Feiyang outside, then don't blame me for being merciful. After saying this, Yun Guanghui turned and left quickly. Father is also anxious this time. Yun Zifeng said with a smile. Qin Feiyang and that mysterious force have come to the southern continent, preparing to make this the next battlefield. How can the patriarch not be anxious in the face of such a thing? Old He sighed. In the past, when they heard all kinds of rumors about Qin Feiyang, they didn't take it to heart, because no matter how much trouble Qin Feiyang caused, it had little to do with them. But they never expected that he would come to the southern continent. The most terrifying thing was that the He family also interfered at this time. Not only did they want to deal with Qin Feiyang, but they also wanted to attack the Yun family. This made the Yun family have no choice but to start planning for the future. Yun Zifeng waved his hand and said, "Go and pass down the order." As father said, the people of the Yun family must not provoke Qin Feiyang outside. Okay. Old He nodded and left quickly. Yun Zifeng walked out of the hall, looked at the clear sky, and muttered, "I wonder where Big Brother is now? If Big Brother is here, maybe he can think of a better way." Duh. Suddenly, a series of hurried footsteps sounded. Yun Zifeng withdrew his gaze and looked up. He saw the other 4 burly men running over and asking, "Did you bury him?" "Yes." The 4 men nodded. "If it wasn't for father's order, I would have let them hang there for hundreds of years. They really got off easy." Yun Zifeng snorted coldly. "I didn't expect you to be so vengeful." Suddenly, a hoarse chuckle echoed from the void nearby. Hearing this voice, whether it was Yun Zifeng, the 4 burly men, or the guards around the hall, all changed color. Someone had infiltrated the Yun family? "Who is it?" one of the guards shouted. Whoosh! A white-haired old man in linen walked out of the void with a big fat cat. The big fat cat was extremely funny. One of its paws was holding a big lamb leg that was twice its size, and the other was holding a jar of wine. It was chewing and drinking at the same time, its mouth full of oil. "Who are you? How dare you trespass on the Yun family's land?" The 4 burly men and a group of guards immediately stepped forward and surrounded the man and the cat, their eyes filled with hostility. The big fat cat was eating and drinking the whole time, completely ignoring them. The linen old man glanced at the 4 burly men and the group of guards, then looked at Yun Zifeng and laughed. "When we left, didn't you say that this old man should come to your Yun family as a guest when he was free?" "Did I say that?" Yun Zifeng was stunned. He looked at the 4 burly men and asked, "Did you?" The 4 burly men looked at each other and shook their heads. "No." But suddenly, the 4 of them seemed to have thought of something and looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. Not long ago, young master did say that, but at that time, he said it to Qin Feiyang. What did it have to do with this old man? Wait. Could it be that this old man was? One of the burly men quickly ran in front of Yun Zifeng and whispered a few words in his ear. Yun Zifeng's face suddenly stiffened. The group of guards looked at each other. What was going on? "If you don't welcome me, then this old man will take his leave." The linen old man smiled. Yun Zifeng shuddered and quickly stepped forward to take the old man's hand. He said with a flattering smile, No, welcome, a warm welcome. It is the Yun family's honor to have you here. Come in and have a seat." After that, he dragged the linen old man into the hall. The 4 burly men smiled bitterly. Young master's flattery skills were getting better and better. Chapter 3497. What's going on? The group of guards looked at the 4 burly men, their faces full of doubts. Why did the young master's attitude seem like he was meeting his ancestor? No, he was even more respectful than meeting his ancestor. Don't ask. Because even if you ask, we don't dare to say. In short, this is a big shot that you can't afford to offend. No, it's a big shot that our Yun family can't afford to offend. The four burly men said meaningfully, then closed the door of the hall and guarded in front of the door. Hearing this, the group of guards looked at each other. A big shot that even their Yun family couldn't afford to offend. How big was this person? In the hall. Beside the tea table. Big brother Qin Dage, Wolf King, please sit. Yun Zifeng greeted Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf, looking extremely reserved. Qin Feiyang sat down and scanned the hall. The decorations of the entire hall were not luxurious at all. There were rows of bookshelves in the corners, and ancient books were neatly arranged on them. On the side, there was an exquisite incense burner, with light smoke curling up. Overall, there was a scholarly atmosphere. Qin Dage, have some tea. Yun Zifeng poured tea and handed it to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze and looked at Yun Zifeng, frowning slightly. Was he really so terrifying? Seeing this fierce person staring at him, Yun Zifeng was even more nervous. His hands holding the teacup couldn't help but tremble. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. He took the teacup and took a sip. A jasmine flower fragrance immediately seeped into his heart. Flower tea? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Seeing this, Yun Zifeng hurriedly said, Qin Dage doesn't like it? I'll change it right away. No need, no need. This flower tea is not ordinary flower tea. It's full of spirit energy. I think it should be brewed from jasmine flowers that are at least 10,000 years old. The taste is not bad. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Of course, compared to the heavenly immortal dew and jade dew dragon well, it was still quite a bit lacking. Hearing this, Yun Zifeng let out a sigh of relief and stood to the side, trembling with fear. Why are you standing there? You're the host, and I'm the guest. How can the host stand and accompany the guest? Sit down. Qin Feiyang looked at Yun Zifeng speechlessly. Yun Zifeng was somewhat hesitant. You really don't have to be so afraid of me. If I'm really a heinous person, do you think you can live until now? Qin Feiyang rubbed his forehead helplessly. Have you ever seen such a kind-looking villain? Yun Zifeng smiled embarrassedly, but the nervousness in his heart was hard to dispel. It was also quite depressing. How could this person be so resourceful? Not only did he make He Tian self-destruct in front of He Chenggang and the He clan's old ancestor, he even snuck into the Yun clan without anyone noticing. Why did it feel like there was nothing he couldn't do? Alright, I'll stand then. Qin Feiyang said weakly and continued to drink his tea. Yun Zifeng smiled apologetically and asked, Qin Dage, how did you sneak into our Yun clan? Sneak? Qin Feiyang was stunned. White-eyed wolf at the side tore off a large piece of lamb leg and said while chewing, let me correct you. We didn't sneak in. We swaggered in through the gate. Yun Zifeng was stunned. Was this possible? It was definitely impossible. The distribution of Yunhan City and Seven Stars City was the same. The four major districts, the inner city. The inner city was also enveloped by a barrier, and there was only one entrance and exit in the entire inner city, which was guarded by experts. If he had really swaggered in, they would have received the news a long time ago. We followed behind your four guards into the inner city. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. I see. Yun Zifeng suddenly understood. Although there was a barrier in the inner city, when entering and exiting the inner city, the barrier in front of the city gate would be activated. This was a gap. Yun Zifeng asked, then why did you come to our Yun clan? Qin Feiyang put down his teacup and looked at Yun Zifeng, if I said that I came here to sightsee, would you believe me? Yun Zifeng's expression froze. Who would go to other people's land for sightseeing? Brat, why are you so stupid? Even if we have something to do, is it useful to talk to you? Can you make the decision? White-eyed Wolf looked at Yun Zifeng speechlessly. He had never seen such a slow little guy. Yun Zifeng smiled embarrassedly and nodded, I understand, I understand. I will immediately inform father and the others. You two wait a moment. With that, he turned and walked outside. When Yun Zifeng opened the door and walked out of the main hall, the four men immediately looked at him and asked in a low voice, what are they here for? I don't know either. However, they should have something to discuss with father and the others. Yun Zifeng turned and closed the door, looking at the four men and shaking his head. What could it be? The four men were curious. How would I know? Don't talk nonsense. Hurry up and get someone to prepare wine and dishes. We have to entertain them well later. Yun Zifeng waved his hand. Okay. The four men nodded and turned to jog away. Young master, do you need our help? The group of guards looked at Yun Zifeng. You guys? Yun Zifeng glanced at the group of people and waved his hand, you guys also hurry up and get lost. Huh? The group of people was stunned and puzzled, get lost to where? Get lost as far as possible? Yun Zifeng said angrily. All right. The group of people laughed bitterly and left one after another. At that moment, only Yun Zifeng was left here. Looking around and seeing that there was no one around, Yun Zifeng took out the sound transmission god stone. Qin Feiyang's appearance was no small matter to the Yun clan. Therefore, other than the people he trusted, he absolutely could not let a third person know. Because in the Yun clan, there were also spies of the He clan, and they might even be hidden among these guards. In less than 10 breaths, two figures descended in front of the main hall. One of them was Yun Guanghui. The other person was a white-haired old man. He wore a snow-white robe and held a dragon-headed walking stick in his hand. He had a somewhat sage-like aura. Father, old ancestor. Yun Zifeng hurriedly went up to greet them. Where is he? The white-haired old man glanced around and asked. He's in the main hall. Yun Zifeng pointed to the main hall and whispered. Amazing. This is the first time that someone can sneak into my Yun clan's land without anyone noticing. The white-haired old man's eyes flashed with a trace of light. He didn't sneak in, he swaggered in. Yun Zifeng smiled bitterly. Hearing this, the white-haired old man and Yun Guanghui looked at each other, their hearts bitter. This young man really couldn't be looked at with ordinary eyes. At this time, Old Black ran over and respectfully bowed with the white-haired old man, saying, Greetings, old ancestor. The white-haired old man nodded. Yun Zifeng looked at Old Black and asked, Have you ordered everything? I've already ordered it. The disciples who were seeking pleasure outside are also rushing back one after another. Old Black said. These disciples who only know how to seek pleasure outside all day, even if they die, it's not worth pitying. The old ancestor of the Yun clan coldly snorted. That's true, but after all, it's the legacy of our Yun clan. Let's talk about it later. This kind of situation can't be avoided by any clan. Yun Guanghui smiled. The old ancestor of the Yun clan glared at him, then looked at Old Black and said, You guard outside, don't let anyone come near. Yes. Old Black nodded respectfully, looked at Yun Zifeng, and asked in a low voice, Young master, what's the situation? Yun Zifeng pointed to the main hall and whispered, Qin Feiyang is inside. What? Old Black's expression suddenly changed. Inside the hall, Qin Feiyang sat at the tea table, quietly drinking tea. White-eyed Wolf had finished eating the lamb leg in his hand, but there was still a lot of wine. The strong smell of wine covered the smell of the flower tea. Creak. The door suddenly opened. The Yun clan's old ancestor, Yun Guanghui, and Yun Zifeng walked in. Seeing an old man sitting inside, Yun Guanghui and Yun Zifeng were stunned. After Yun Zifeng turned around and closed the door, he ran to the front and introduced, "Old ancestor, father, this is Qin Dage, and this is Golden Wing Wolf King." The two came back to their senses and quickly went forward with a smile. What a rare guest. Qin Feiyang also stood up with a smile, took a face-restoring pill, and immediately recovered his true appearance. He then cupped his hands and said, "This junior has taken the liberty to visit, I hope the two seniors will forgive me." Seniors? The Yun clan's old ancestor and Yun Zifeng were stunned. He was quite polite. It's fine, it's fine. Sit down, sit down." The Yun clan's old ancestor walked to the tea table and chuckled. The three of them sat down, and only Yun Zifeng stood to the side cautiously. Yun Guanghui picked up the teapot, poured the tea, and said with a smile, "Brother Qin has saved my son twice. Whether it's for me or for the entire Yun clan, this is a great kindness. So, I should be the one apologizing to you. Patriarch Yun is too polite. It's just a small matter." Qin Feiyang smiled. "It's just a small matter for you, but for Feng, this is a life-saving grace. I wanted to scold him before, why didn't he invite his savior to our Yun clan for a visit? It would have been better to show some hospitality and repay him. Sigh. It's all my fault. I didn't teach this child well. He doesn't even know how to conduct himself. Brother Qin, please don't take it to heart." Yun Guanghui picked up the teacup, stood up, and said with a smile, "I'll use this tea as wine to apologize on behalf of my son, and welcome Brother Qin to the Yun clan as a guest." Qin Feiyang smiled and also picked up the teacup, clinking it with Yun Guanghui. After drinking the tea, the two returned to their seats. Qin Feiyang put down the teacup, looked at the Yun clan's old ancestor and Yun Guanghui, and said with a smile, "This junior doesn't like to beat around the bush. There are some things this junior will say directly. There's no harm in saying it." The two nodded. "I believe Yun Zifeng has already explained the He clan situation to you. Previously, I was in 7-Star City and met with the He clan's patriarch and old ancestor. They have indeed submitted to the dragons, and after the dragons reconstruct their bodies, they will immediately make a move on your Yun clan. I think you should know the consequences of this." Qin Feiyang said. The Yun clan's old ancestor said, "So, He Tian's self-destruction was because of you?" "That's right. I have never been merciful to my enemies." Qin Feiyang nodded. Chapter 3498. When the old ancestor of the Yun family and Yun Guanghui heard this, their hearts couldn't help but tremble. Was this a warning to them? Warning them not to be enemies with him? However, making He Tian self-destruct in front of He Chenggang and Yun Guanghui, this method was indeed terrifying. And it was very cruel. Think about it. What could be more painful than watching one's own son self-destruct in front of one's own eyes? The old ancestor of the Yun family pondered for a while and asked, "What exactly are dragons?" Dragons come from the Yin Demon Land. In the core area of the Yin Demon Land, there is a place called the Dragon's Nest. The dragons live in this dragon's nest. Qin Feiyang said. What? The old ancestor of the Yun family's expression changed. Yun Guanghui and Yun Zifeng looked at each other, their faces full of disbelief. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. It's normal for you to have such a reaction, because when I entered the Yin Demon Land and found out about the existence of the dragons, I was also very surprised. This old man really didn't expect that there would be such a mysterious force hidden in the core area of the Yin Demon Land. The old ancestor of the Yun family shook his head and sighed, and asked, "Then, have you been to the core area?" "No. When we were chased by the dragons, we strolled around the inner area. Qin Feiyang smiled. Even so, the old ancestor of the Yun family couldn't help but gasp. The Yin Demon Land was located between the southern and eastern continents, so he was also very familiar with the situation there. Even with his strength, he didn't dare to step into the inner area because he couldn't withstand the corrosion of the Yin demon power. But this young man in front of him had actually been to the inner area. Just this ability alone was enough to leave others in the dust. Are the dragons strong? Yun Guanghui asked. I don't know the overall strength of the dragons. Because as of now, I have only seen the princes and princesses of the dragons' clans, as well as their followers. But the strength of these followers isn't just a little terrifying. Each of them has mastered 2 supreme profundities, and some of them have even mastered the supreme profundities of the ultimate law. It can be said that once they reconstruct their bodies, they alone will be enough to destroy the Yun family. Qin Feiyang said. Yun Guanghui's expression froze. How could he be so powerful? Indeed, this is nothing. The most terrifying ones are the princes and princesses of the dragons. Almost every one of them has a dominator weapon. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. What? Everyone will have a sovereign weapon. The eyes of the Yun family ancestor and Yun Guanghui trembled. This was too terrifying. Needless to say, Yun Zifeng was so scared that his face turned pale. He asked in a trembling voice, then how many princes and princesses do they have? According to what I've seen so far, there are 10 of them. Qin Feiyang said. 10, Yun Zifeng's expression froze. Wasn't this equivalent to 10 sovereign-level divine weapons? 10 sovereign-level divine weapons? How were they supposed to fight? One had to know. In the entire southern continent, there was only one sovereign-level divine weapon. Even in the entire Sky Cloud realm, there were only 4 sovereign-level divine weapons. Even the dragons didn't have one. In other words, even if it was only the princes and princesses, it was enough to destroy the entire Sky Cloud realm. Involuntarily, Yun Zifeng sized up Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf. Even in the face of such terrifying dragons, these people could still remain calm and steady. This kind of temperament and means was really unmatched. Sure enough. Compared to these people, he, the son of the Yun family patriarch, was far inferior in both courage and courage. You can imagine that even the followers of these princes and princesses are so strong, let alone the higher-ups of the dragons. I even heard that the dragons have a supreme existence. His name is Dragon King, and he controls the entire dragons. I think this person's strength is even more shocking. So I want to know, does your Yun family have the confidence to deal with the dragons? If you say yes, I will leave immediately and never disturb you again. But if you don't, then please think about how you can escape this calamity. After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he picked up his teacup and quietly looked at the 2 old ancestors of the Yun family. The old ancestor of the Yun family and Yun Guanghui were silent. What a joke! In the face of such a terrifying dragons, how could the Yun family have the ability to deal with them? The temple's only sovereign-level divine weapon, their Yun family only had half of the control. But if they really cooperated with Qin Feiyang, they would still have to face the dragons, and their future would also be bleak. Suddenly, the white-eyed wolf looked at the 2 and said, "Actually, you have a third choice." What choice? Yun Guanghui and Yun Guanghui looked at the white-eyed wolf suspiciously. The white-eyed wolf said playfully, "Give up everything you have now, take your clansmen and hide in the deep mountains and forests. I think this way, the He family shouldn't be so ruthless as to kill you all." Their faces darkened. Giving up everything they had now, how could they do that? One had to know that everything the Yun family had now was exchanged with the lives and blood of countless ancestors. No matter how cowardly a person was, they wouldn't do such a thing as abandoning their family business and living an ignoble life. Besides, even if they were willing to let it go, with the many years of grudges between the Yun family and the He family would definitely not let them off. In other words, it was inevitable to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Not willing? Then you only have two choices. One is to cooperate with us, and the other is to cooperate with the dragons. You have to make a choice. Don't misunderstand, it's not us who are forcing you, it's the He family who is forcing you. The He family has the backing of the dragons and will definitely start to expand. At that time, the first target will be your Yun family. The white-eyed wolf looked at the two of them mockingly. For the Yun family, this was a catastrophe that could wipe them out. In fact, the Yun family was also wronged. Because in the past, the Yun family had never investigated the battle between Qin Feiyang and the dragons. They had never even helped Qin Feiyang in the slightest. This was completely a disaster, and an innocent party was implicated. Yun Guanghui and Yun Guanghui were silent. Yun Zifeng naturally didn't dare to express his opinion. He also didn't have the courage to make a decision. For a moment, the entire hall fell into a dead silence. After a long, long time, the Yun family's ancestor took a deep breath, looked at Qin Feiyang, and said in a deep voice, "If we cooperate with you, are you confident that you can help my Yun family get through this disaster?" Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. This was a good start. Because the Yun family's ancestor asked this because he was more inclined to cooperate with him. In fact, the Yun family's ancestor wasn't stupid. If they cooperated with the dragons now, it would be tantamount to suicide. Because the dragons cooperated with the He family first, the He family would definitely obstruct them. For example, they would force the Yun family to hand over the other half of the control of the ruler divine weapon, or force the Yun family to become a subsidiary of the He family in the future. Although they could protect the Yun family temporarily, with the He family's ambition, the Yun family would be swallowed up sooner or later. At that time, the Yun family wouldn't have the power to fight back. Because they had already given up the control of the ruler divine weapon, what could they do when the He family attacked with the ruler divine weapon? They could only obediently accept their deaths. Qin Feiyang put down his teacup and said with a smile, "To be honest, so far, I am not confident that I can defeat the dragons. I believe you are well aware of this. This old man knows. With your current strength, you still can't fight the dragons head-on. This is not a problem this old man cares about. This old man only cares about whether you can protect the Yun family, or even help our Yun family obtain the control of the ruler divine weapon and unify the southern continent." The Yun family's ancestor said in a deep voice. Qin Feiyang's eyes lit up like two bright moons, and said, "Give me some time, I can guarantee you that the future ruler of the southern continent will be your Yun family." The Yun family's ancestor stared at Qin Feiyang, his eyes flashing with an inexplicable light. The old man and the young man looked at each other like this. Suddenly. The Yun family's ancestor laughed out loud and said, "As expected, the younger generation will surpass us in time. When I first saw you at the exchange, this old man already felt that you were not an ordinary young man. As expected, your achievements today are something that countless young people can't surpass. You were also at the exchange back then?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. "Didn't you see this old man? This old man has always been sitting in the front row. And that time, this old man was also the one leading the team." The Yun family's ancestor said in shock. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang's face was a little embarrassed, and he smiled embarrassedly. "Sorry, my attention was on the Blood Hall at that time, and I didn't pay much attention to the people from the Divine Hall and Sky Hall." All right. To think that this old man, the Deputy Hall Master of the Divine Hall, was ignored by a junior. The Yun family's ancestor shook his head and smiled bitterly. This was really a blow to him. Sorry. Qin Feiyang smiled embarrassedly. At that time, he was worried about the safety of the Sword Emperor and the others, so he didn't pay much attention to the people from the Divine Hall and Sky Hall. These are all small matters. The Yun family's ancestor waved his hand and smiled. This old man doesn't like to drag things out. Little brother, you came to my Yun family personally, which means that you are indeed sincere and think highly of my Yun family. It is impolite not to reciprocate. This old man will give you an answer now. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang looked at the Yun family's ancestor expectantly. Yun Guanghui and Yun Zifeng also looked at the Yun family's ancestor nervously. Because the ancestor's decision now was related to the fate of the Yun family in the future. What would he choose? The Yun family's ancestor looked at the father and son, holding the teacup, pondered for a moment, raised his head and drank the tea in the cup. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "As long as you can fulfill today's promise one day in the future, my Yun family is willing to be with you, in life and death, in trials and tribulations." Hearing this, Qin Feiyang's hand that was holding the teacup trembled slightly, unable to hide the joy in his heart. Yun Guanghui and his son looked at each other and sighed inwardly. This was really a huge gamble, gambling with the fate of the Yun family. However, when the Yun family's ancestor made this decision, they seemed to have a sense of relief. Although the dragons were very strong, and although Qin Feiyang was not a match for the dragons now, in their hearts, there was a very strange feeling. It seemed that, in this battle between the dragons and Qin Feiyang, the final winner would definitely be Qin Feiyang. Moreover, this was the ancestors' decision. They believed in the ancestors' vision. Since the ancestor had chosen to cooperate with Qin Feiyang, then he must have a certain amount of confidence in Qin Feiyang. Besides, it was useless for them to object. And this, under the current situation, was also the best choice. Because cooperating with Qin Feiyang, there was at least a little hope. In short, since he had already sat down and made a decision, there was no need to think too much. He just had to do his best. Chapter 3499. At the same time. The He family. At the back of the mountain. There were more than a dozen courtyards, surrounded by mountains and rivers. At the same time. The ancestor of the He family, He Changgang, was standing in front of one of the courtyards, his face full of grief and anger. After a while, an old woman in green clothes appeared. "How is it?" the two of them hurriedly asked. The old woman in green clothes said, "His Highness said that no matter what happens now, we have to wait until we reconstruct our bodies. But Qin Feiyang has already come to the southern continent. And he already knows that we're cooperating with you. With Qin Feiyang's personality, how can he let us go? My son, He Tian, has already met with misfortune. I don't want more people to be implicated." He Changgang was extremely anxious. What's the hurry? Will Qin Feiyang still dare to come to the He family openly? Don't forget that we have a few sovereign divine weapons here. He's not that stupid. You should restrain your people. Tell them not to go out and cause trouble during this period. After saying that, the old woman in green clothes turned around and entered the courtyard without looking back, leaving He Changgang and He Changgang in a daze. Is this the attitude of cooperation? When he came back to his senses, He Changgang immediately shouted. "Shut up!" The ancestor of the He family's face changed and he hurriedly shouted. If they were already enemies with Qin Feiyang, and if they angered these people, then the He clan would be in a situation where they couldn't even call for help. He Changgang gloomily looked at the courtyards and transmitted his voice, "Old ancestor, why don't we surrender to Qin Feiyang?" You, the ancestor of the He family's face froze and he looked at He Changgang in shock and anger. Why do you have such a thought? Don't you want to avenge your son by surrendering to Qin Feiyang? He's just a good-for-nothing unfilial son. There's no need to sacrifice the entire He family for him. I know Qin Feiyang. Although he's ruthless to his enemies, he's very kind to his friends and family. I believe that if we follow him, we'll definitely be treated better. He Chenggang thought. Naive. You think Qin Feiyang is a match for them? Qin Feiyang only has 2 Dominator weapons at most, but these people all have 1. Think about it. Even those youngsters all possess ruler armaments. Furthermore, they possess such powerful followers. As such, there's no need to mention the power behind them. Think about it, how terrifying is the force behind them? If we follow Qin Feiyang, we will be digging our own graves. The old ancestor of the He clan sneered. He Chenggang said, but these people don't take us seriously at all. I feel that in their eyes, we are as lowly as dogs. This old man knows. However, if you want to achieve great things, you must know how to endure. Bear with it. When they finish reconstructing their bodies, it will be the end of Qin Feiyang. The old ancestor of the He clan thought to himself with a cold glint in his eyes. He Chenggang said solemnly, there's also the Yun family. We definitely can't let them off. Of course. When the time comes, we will kill them all. From then on, the southern continent will be the world of our He clan. The old ancestor of the He clan nodded. The Yun family. Qin Feiyang and the old ancestor of the Yun family chatted happily. During their conversation, Qin Feiyang also learned the name of the old ancestor of the Yun family, Yun Zhongtian. As for the Yun family, other than the supreme expert Yun Zhongtian, there was another super expert called Yun Zhongyue. Yun Zhongyue was Yun Zhongtian's younger sister. She was now the temple master of the law enforcement hall and had also grasped the supreme profound. Although it was only an ordinary law and not the supreme profound of the supreme profound, in the sky cloud realm, it was still considered an existence that stood at the top of the pyramid. Apart from the siblings, Yun Guanghui also had 2 other brothers. Yun Guanghui was one of them. He was ranked the eldest. The other 2 were called Yun Guanghui and Yun Guangfu. The 3 brothers' cultivation was at the perfection sovereign realm. They had not comprehended the supreme profound, but their abilities were quite strong. For example, Yun Guanghui managed such a large family in an orderly manner by himself. There were also the elders of the Yun family. There were many elders in the Yun family and they were all very strong. However, 4 of them were particularly outstanding and famous in the southern continent. Because they were all people who had comprehended the supreme profound, they were now holding the position of elder in the temple. As for the other perfection sovereign realm experts, according to Yun Zhongtian, there were more than 2,000 of them. No matter where this force was placed, it could not be underestimated. Therefore, for Qin Feiyang, when the Yun family agreed to cooperate, it was like sending charcoal in snowy weather, adding to the joy. Qin Feiyang suddenly thought of something and looked at Yun Zhongtian. Elder Yun, I wonder if there is a young man called Yun Xiang in your Yun family? Yun Xiang. Yun Zhongtian and Yun Guanghui looked at each other, a bright light flashing in their eyes. Beside them, Yun Zifeng's expression also changed. Qin Feiyang looked at the changes in their expressions and asked suspiciously, could it be that Yun Xiang is really a member of your Yun family? The Yun Xiang you're talking about, does he look like this? Yun Zhongtian waved his hand and the image of a young man appeared. Yes. He has also grasped the law of space. Qin Feiyang nodded. Yun Zhongtian pondered for a moment and looked at Qin Feiyang. Since we've already formed an alliance, there's nothing to hide. That's right, Yun Xiang is indeed a member of my Yun family. Qin Feiyang was stunned. That was really the case. Yun Zhongtian laughed hoarsely. Moreover, Xiang and Zifeng are blood brothers. Blood brothers? Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback and looked up at Yun Zifeng. Yun Zifeng nodded. Yes, he's my big brother. Qin Feiyang heard this and smiled bitterly. To tell you the truth, we've also thought about it, but we haven't had the chance to confirm it. Not long ago, outside the Yin Devil land, I wanted to ask Yun Zifeng about it, but in the end, he was trembling with fear and couldn't communicate normally. Cough cough. Yun Zifeng coughed dryly and quickly winked at Qin Feiyang. Qin Dage, don't talk about this kind of thing. Trembling with fear? What do you mean? Yun Zhongtian and Yun Zifeng looked suspiciously at Yun Zifeng. Nothing, nothing, you can talk about yourselves. Yun Zifeng quickly waved his hand. The white-eyed wolf said, he was scared silly by little Qin Zi and couldn't even communicate normally. Big brother wolf, what are you doing? Are you trying to embarrass me? Yun Zifeng's expression stiffened and he looked at the white-eyed wolf with a wronged expression. With your trembling appearance, do you still need this big brother to embarrass you? The white-eyed wolf said with disdain. Yun Zifeng's face was bitter, and his heart was extremely uncomfortable. Yun Guanghui and Yun Zifeng finally understood and shook their heads with a smile. This is normal. Which young person in the sky cloud boundary isn't trembling with fear when they see you? The point is, I'm really not that scary. Qin Feiyang was helpless. Yun Guanghui smiled. It's not a question of whether you're scary or not, it's just that your methods are too powerful, making them instinctively feel fear. Qin Feiyang said, not necessarily, Yun Xiang has never been afraid of me. Yun Guanghui pondered for a moment and smiled. Xiang is another matter, because he has been wandering alone since he was young. Whether it is his character or courage, he is extraordinary. When he spoke of Yun Xiang, there was a trace of unconcealable pride on his face. Qin Feiyang said, in that case, Yun Xiang is that monstrous genius that your Yun clan has been hiding? Hidden, Yun Guanghui murmured, and there seemed to be a trace of pain between his brows. He looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, who told you this? Old Pei. It's him. Qin Feiyang said. So it's him. Yun Guanghui nodded in realization and sighed. Actually, it's not that we want to hide Xiang, it's that he wants to hide himself. White-eyed wolf and Qin Feiyang were stunned. What did he mean? It's a long story. Although I don't know where Xiang is now. I believe that on the day the He family is destroyed, he will definitely appear. Yun Guanghui's hands unconsciously clenched, and there seemed to be hatred in his eyes. Qin Feiyang frowned and looked at Yun Zhongtian and Yun Zifeng. Both of them had the same reaction. It seemed that there was a sad past hidden in this. And it must be related to the He family. However, since the other party was unwilling to say, he would not force them. After all, this was their personal matter. But there was something he had to be clear about. Qin Feiyang looked at the three of them and said, when Yun Xiang appeared in the eastern mainland and had some interactions with me, I have been thinking, is he intentionally trying to get close to me? And this matter, does it have anything to do with the Yun family? You met him in the eastern mainland? The three of them were stunned and immediately got up to look at Qin Feiyang. Looking at the three's reaction, Qin Feiyang was caught off guard. They did not even know that Yun Xiang was in the eastern mainland? In that case, it must have nothing to do with the Yun family. Yes. Not long after I arrived in the eastern mainland, I met him. Qin Feiyang nodded. Yun Guanghui tensed up and asked carefully, did you have any conflicts? This, Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and smiled. There was a little friction, but it's nothing serious. That's good. Yun Guanghui breathed a sigh of relief and said, Xiang's life has not been easy. If he has done anything to offend you, please be magnanimous and forgive him for our sake. It's fine. Since he's your son, then everything in the past must be a misunderstanding. On the contrary, I have to apologize to him if I have the chance. I've always suspected that he was deliberately approaching me. Sometimes, I really hate my paranoia. It feels like everyone who gets close to me has ulterior motives. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. I can understand. After all, you're facing too many crises. Yun Guanghui smiled and shook his head. If you didn't tell me, I wouldn't have known that he was in the eastern mainland. Do you have a way to contact him now? I've tried. You should know about Tianyue Tower, right? Qin Feiyang asked. I've heard a little about it. Yun Guanghui nodded. There are 2 tower masters in Tianyue Tower. One is called Yuqing, and the other is called Yi Miao. They have a good relationship with Yun Xiang, and they have established a contractual bridge with each other. Maybe you don't know, but Yun Xiang was the one who established Tianyue Tower. But later, Yun Xiang left without saying a word. Until now, Yuqing and Yi Miao have not been able to contact him. Qin Feiyang said. Why can't they contact him? Could it be, Yun Guanghui's expression changed, and his body could not help but tremble. Could he be dead? Chapter 3500. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. Senior, don't worry. Yun Xiang should be fine. Didn't you say that you couldn't contact him? Yun Guanghui frowned. Although we can't contact him, his contract bridge is still there. That means he's still alive. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. That's good. Yun Guanghui patted his chest and sighed in relief. As long as he was still alive, everything was fine. Qin Feiyang looked at the 3 of them and said, You can try to contact him. Us? Yun Guanghui, Yun Zhongtian, and Yun Zifeng looked at each other with bitter smiles on their faces. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Yun Guanghui waved his hand. To tell you the truth, we didn't establish a contract bridge with him. Qin Feiyang looked at the 3 of them in shock. As family, father and son, and brothers, they actually didn't establish a contract bridge? Some things are really hard to explain in a few words. In short, Brother Qin, if you meet him again in the future, please tell him that we really miss him. If he has time, please come home and visit. Yun Guanghui sighed. Qin Feiyang looked deeply at Yun Guanghui and smiled. When I meet him in the future, it's the same as you meeting him. When the time comes, you can tell him yourself. What do you mean? Yun Guanghui was taken aback and looked suspiciously at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang said, This junior said before, facing the current dragons, this junior is powerless. Therefore, your Yun family can no longer stay in the southern mainland. Yun Guanghui and the Yun family's old ancestor looked at each other and then at Qin Feiyang. Then where are we going? To the eastern or western mainland? Didn't we escape the dragon's pursuit? Of course not to the eastern or western mainland. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Then where are we going? Both of them were puzzled. I'll bring you to a place. You'll know when you see it. Qin Feiyang put down the teacup and got up with a smile. The 3 of them looked at each other and nodded. Yun Guanghui and Yun Zhongtian put down their teacups as well. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and a group of people appeared in the sky above the Devil's Land. Where is this? Yun Guanghui and the other 2 looked down in surprise. This is my world, the Black Tortoise World. I believe that you all have heard of the Black Tortoise World. However, the Black Tortoise World is not a spatial divine object. It is an independent world. Qin Feiyang smiled. An independent world. The 3 of them exchanged glances and immediately released their divine sense in all directions. Soon, his face became lifeless. It was so big. Moreover, whether it was the beasts or humans, the number was beyond imagination. It was no different from an entire world. Qin Feiyang raised his hand and waved. A surge of rule power descended and floated in the air, emitting a destructive aura. This is, Yun Guanghui and the old ancestor of the Yun family trembled. Rule force. It was truly an independent world. Because it was impossible for a spatial divine object to possess rule force. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Actually, the fact that the Black Tortoise world is an independent world is not a secret. The people of the Blood Hall have long known about it, but for some reason, they did not announce it to the public. What reason? Could it be that Pei Tianhong and the others want to snatch the Black Tortoise world from your hands? Yun Zhongtian asked. Even if they had such thoughts, they would not dare to take action. Because back then, the reason why the Blood Hall was my enemy was actually related to the dragons. Qin Feiyang smiled. I see. At that time during the exchange, I was still wondering why the Blood Hall would make things difficult for a junior like you. It turns out that the dragons were behind it. Yun Zhongtian nodded in realization. Now, Pei Tianhong and the others' families are also in the Black Tortoise world. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Where are they? I don't see them. Yun Zhongtian glanced below and said. They are in the middle state and this is the Devil's Land. It can be considered this junior's base camp. Ordinary people can't step into this place. Qin Feiyang smiled. Then, isn't it an honor for us to be here now? Yun Zhongtian chuckled. Of course. Take a look at what's below us. The white-eyed wolf pointed at the ancient castle below. Yun Zhongtian looked down and his pupils shrunk. Wasn't that the rumored sovereign divine weapon? It turned out that there was a sovereign divine weapon guarding it. No wonder no one in the Black Tortoise world dared to barge into the Devil's Land. Qin Feiyang smiled. The Devil's Land is only so big and can't accommodate so many people. When the time comes, your Yun family will have to go to the middle state to enter the Black Tortoise world. But there doesn't seem to be a single person in this Devil's Land? What about Madman Mo and Pei Tianhong? Yun Guanghui was suspicious. Qin Feiyang said, they all live here, but they have all gone to cultivate now. Where are they cultivating? Yun Guanghui was surprised. It's not in the Black Tortoise world. It's a more mysterious place. Forgive this junior for not being able to tell you. Qin Feiyang smiled apologetically. A mysterious place. Yun Guanghui and Yun Zhongtian looked at each other in disbelief. These people actually had a secret cultivation place. Wait a minute. A sovereign divine weapon, an independent world, a slaughter domain comparable to a sovereign divine weapon, and even a secret cultivation place. Could there be a mysterious force behind this group of people? Yun Zifeng was also shocked to the extreme. He never thought that this person whose name shook the sky cloud world would have so many secrets. He glanced at the Black Tortoise world and looked at Yun Guanghui and Yun Zhongtian. Father, old ancestor, this place is indeed not bad. As long as we enter the Black Tortoise world, no matter how powerful the He family is, they won't be able to do anything to us. However, this is no different from abandoning the family and leaving home. Hearing this, the two of them fell silent. That's right. This was the same as the third option that the white-eyed wolf had proposed. Did they really have to abandon everything they had? No, there's a difference. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. What's the difference? Yun Zifeng was suspicious. If you find a remote mountain and hide, you'll lose everything completely. You won't have a chance to make a comeback. Moreover, if you hide in the sky cloud world, you'll still be hunted down by the He family. But it's different in the Black Tortoise world. Even if you give it up now, you can take it back in the future. Moreover, you don't have to worry about being hunted down by the He family. The most important thing is that the Black Tortoise world has a time array. Qin Feiyang smiled. Yun Zifeng said, who doesn't have a time array? My Yun family has one. Qin Feiyang smiled and asked, then how many years does your Yun family's time array have in a day? A top-grade time array, 500 years in a day. Yun Zifeng smiled proudly. Eh. Qin Feiyang was stunned. 500 years in a day was a top-grade time array. Yun Guanghui saw the change in Qin Feiyang's expression and coughed dryly. Zifeng, don't pretend to know when you don't know. What top grade? A true top-grade time array isn't just 500 years in a day. That's right. If you say that, it makes you seem short-sighted. Yun Zhongtian also shook his head. Then, have you seen a time array that's more powerful than 500 years in a day? Yun Zifeng was unconvinced. Of course. The Black Tortoise World's time array is 1,000 years in a day. Even more powerful than the Black Tortoise World's time array, 5,000 years in a day, we've seen them all. The white-eyed wolf pursed his lips, his face full of disdain. What? The time array here is 1,000 years in a day? Yun Zifeng's expression froze. Yun Zhongtian and Yun Guanghui were also shocked. What shocked them the most was the last sentence. They had actually seen a time array that was 5,000 years in a day. Could it be that Pei Tianhong and the others were cultivating in seclusion in that time array that was 5,000 years in a day? The white-eyed wolf drank a mouthful of wine and looked at Yun Zifeng mockingly, asking, "Now, do you feel like you've never seen the world?" Yun Zifeng's expression was extremely awkward. Think about it carefully. If you enter the Black Tortoise world, not only will you be able to enjoy this time array that's 1,000 years in a day, you will also have a chance to turn the tables. Moreover, if little Qin Zi is happy, he might even give you a great fortune. The white-eyed wolf said. Fortune? The three of them were stunned. The white-eyed wolf looked at Yun Guanghui and Yun Zhongtian, saying, "For the two of you, this fortune is especially important." The two of them looked at each other and then at the white-eyed wolf, asking, "Can you be more specific?" More specific, the white-eyed wolf pondered for a moment, then his eyes suddenly lit up, saying, "Let's talk about Pei Tianhong and Wang Changyuan. They have already grasped two profound meanings." What? The two of them were shocked. How long had it been since they followed Qin Feiyang? They had already comprehended the second profound meaning? Could this so-called fortune be related to the profound meaning of laws? Alright, you're the one who talks the most. Qin Feiyang secretly glared at the white-eyed wolf. He didn't even know what the Yun family was like, so what was the point of talking about this? At the very least, he had to see if they were really trustworthy before deciding whether to help them open the door of potential. Isn't this increasing the bargaining chip? Moreover, I didn't directly say the door of potential. The white-eyed wolf secretly said. Qin Feiyang smiled helplessly and looked at Yun Zhongtian and Yun Guanghui, saying, "Let's go sit in the tea garden." Okay. The two of them nodded and followed Qin Feiyang into the tea garden. Looking at the lush tea trees around them, a trace of surprise appeared on their faces. They didn't expect this young man to like tea. And these tea trees, they could tell at a glance that they were not ordinary tea trees and had been carefully cultivated. They really didn't expect this young man with a fierce reputation to have such a leisurely and carefree side. It seemed that they had underestimated this young man before. Qin Feiyang took out the tea leaves and tea set and began to brew tea. Soon, the aroma of the tea wafted out. Yun Zhongtian and Yun Guanghui's eyes lit up. This was the first time they had seen the aroma of tea. You can slowly discuss while drinking tea. I won't force you. It's all up to you. Even if you don't want to, we're still friends. Qin Feiyang poured 2 cups of tea and handed it to the two of them with a smile. The two of them looked at each other and took the teacups. They lowered their heads and sipped, hesitation in their eyes. To be honest, for anyone, giving up their family business and leaving their homeland was a difficult decision to make. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.